You know, my spookies, some people wait until October to start celebrating Halloween, but we've never been those people. The nights are already getting a little longer. The shadows are beginning to stretch across the road, and somewhere beyond the last porch light, the creatures of American folklore are waking up. So tonight we're beginning our little countdown with a very special folklore and true story Halloween primer. We'll start in Defiance, Ohio, where railroad workers reported a towering werewolf stalking the tracks. Then the black-eyed children come knocking, asking to be let inside. From there, we travel to Arkansas in search of the Fouke Monster, return to the Buckeye State on the trail of Bigfoot, follow the bloodless legend of the Chupacabra, meet the smiling stranger called Indrid Cold, and finally enter the frozen hunger of the Wendigo curse. 7 terrifying tales, cryptids, urban legends, reported encounters, and true history all waiting for you in the dark. So, lock the doors, turn down the lights, get real cozy, because your spooky season starts right now. First up, the Werewolf of Defiance. The engrossing legend of the werewolf has been around for centuries across the globe. It's widely believed that they are men with the ability or compulsion to transform into wolves, defying all the laws of nature. Man and wolf have long been enemies and total opposites. The essentially rational man and the inherently evil wolf. So, when the two are combined, it creates a symbolic creature with the intelligence of a man and the barbarity of the wolf. The official term for this is lycanthropy. Lycans are said to have the strength to easily tear a human limb from limb and the speed of some kind of superhuman creature, so fast that it would be nearly impossible to perceive their movements with the naked eye. They are essentially thought to be the apex predators of the night that stop at nothing to shed blood and fill their stomachs. The legend can be traced all the way back to early Greek mythology, meaning they were likely more prevalent than the mythical lore behind the closely related phenomenon of vampirism. While werewolves have been made popular through literature and in movies, there have been many sightings over the centuries, and not just in certain areas, but all over the world, making you wonder if there is any truth behind hybrid monsters that many just refer to as simply pure fantasy. According to the people of Defiance, Ohio, it's no mystery. After accounts of seeing a half-man, half-beast surfaced in the summer of 1972, the residents of Defiance grew terrified they would encounter the creature. And reasonably so, the number of accounts even, amazingly, prompted a police investigation. To add to this, Ohio itself has a long history of being known for having werewolf sightings, and of course, creepy folklore. Just a few include the notorious Bigfoot and its many variations, the winged creature called the Mothman, the Loveland Frogman, and so many more whispered about at campsites and sleepovers. So it's no wonder that Defiance, Ohio was struck with fear when the police were searching for the beast-like creature so many residents had reported seeing. The first sighting of the Werewolf of Defiance was on July 25, 1972. Ted Davis, a railroad worker, was on the Norfolk Western train lines that day. As he was working just like any other day, he noticed something very strange from the corner of his eye. And when he lifted his head, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was an 8-foot-tall beast, covered in hair from head to toe. The creature was hunched over and was, oddly, carrying a large wooden board. Some reports state that Ted claimed the werewolf-like figure showed its sharpened fangs. Ted didn't even have a second to react when the enormous beast struck him in his side with the board. Ted fell over, and when he picked himself back up, the beast had fled into the woods. He later reported that the attack was completely out of the blue. He filed a police report about the attack. However, the police did not take him seriously. Ted also told a few coworkers and buddies about his terrifying encounter, but none of them believed him either, and they all just laughed it off. A few days later, though, Ted and his coworker Tom Jones were back out around the same area in Defiance, working. Without warning, the creature returned to the railroad tracks, and this time Tom was there to witness the creature's appearance as well. Thankfully, they were at a safe enough distance that the beast couldn't see them staring at it. The large and hairy but strangely humanoid creature was prowling through the bushes, seemingly looking for something. Suddenly, it jumped as if it was startled, and then quickly fled out of the men's sight. After this, Ted knew he needed to report this second sighting to the police as well, hoping they would warn local residents of the potential danger. And now, his coworker Tom had also witnessed it and could back up his account. When the two men spoke to the police, they surprisingly took them seriously this time, and even agreed to begin an investigation into the weird animals. The chief of police, Donald Breckler, said during an interview with the media, quote, "We don't know what to think. We didn't release it to the news media when we first got the report about a week ago, but now we're taking it seriously. We're concerned about the safety of our people." Not long after this, a third sighting occurred, and it didn't come from Ted this time, but from a grocery store employee who had just ended his shift. He was driving late at night after leaving the store when he spotted what he described as a dog-like creature just off the side of the road. He said it was impossibly large, standing over 7 feet tall, and it matched the descriptions police had reported. Not long after, a fourth sighting came from a motorist who said it ran in front of their bike at around 4 a.m. in the morning. They were close to hitting the beastly figure, but it quickly fled into the woods. Now, the town of Defiance, Ohio, was panicking. As the stories spread through several newspapers and media, many in the area refused to leave their homes at night. Overall, everyone who spotted the beast described it as being anywhere from 7 to 9 feet tall, overly hairy, and humanoid in some ways. In each encounter, it was hunched over and gave a deep, threatening stare. Many more reports of potential sightings came flooding in over the next few weeks to police, and the level of hysteria was rising in the town of Defiance. Residents weren't staying out late at night. Some didn't allow their children outside without adult supervision, and some were even boarding up their windows. Others took an interest in it and wanted to stay out late, just to spot the mysterious large wolfman. Many Defiance residents believed the werewolf was not an animal at all, but rather a person. In one sighting, someone reported the creature was even wearing jeans, and many found it strange that instead of using its strength, large claws, and piercing fangs to attack Ted, it used a 2x4 and then quickly ran away, leaving Ted more traumatized than injured. But if it was just a rather large man, what was his motive? This is what puzzled the authorities. The person hadn't robbed anyone, and for most of the sightings, it seemed startled by people and ran away from them. The residents that lived in the neighborhood along the Norfolk Western Railway thought the thing was just a mentally disturbed person running loose in defiance. Others openly talked about if they found out who or what it was, they would kill it themselves. But no violence ever occurred in relation to the mysterious beast of the night, and all of the reports slowly trickled down to none as the fall of 1972 approached. And although there have been many other Ohio werewolf sightings, there aren't any other reported cases of anything strange in Defiance in all the years since. Was it truly a bloodthirsty hybrid, or was the thing holding the wooden board just a nocturnal, crazed man out of his mind, determined to terrify an entire town? In the end, the Werewolf of Defiance was not the first or last sightings of werewolves in Ohio history. In the spring of 1950, there wasn't a sighting as much as a discovery. In Eagle Creek, Ohio, archaeologists unearthed the remains of an Adena man whose front teeth were apparently removed. Found beside the man's skeletal remains was a portion of a wolf's jaw, and the piece fit perfectly into the space where the prehistoric man's missing teeth were supposed to be. Could this have been some kind of ancient Adena religious ceremony? Or a man-turned-creature? In the 1980s, a family of 3 moved into a new home in London, Ohio. The home was in a wooded area, and the mother and her 4-year-old daughter were often left alone at night as the father attended night school. One night, the mother heard noises outside of the home, but when she investigated, she couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. Then, as she was washing dishes in front of her darkened window, she looked up, and her eyes met with another pair of eyes outside. She initially thought it must have been a stray dog, but when she saw the eyes again, they were at her eye level. When she told her husband of the odd and terrifying sighting, he did his best to investigate, but ultimately found nothing. The mother continued to see menacing eyes outside of her window many more times after that. While these are just 2 more eerie accounts from the Buckeye State, Ohio's history is littered with werewolf tales, the Werewolf of Defiance being the most notorious. And even if you don't believe these stories, the legend of werewolves dates back thousands of years. Many people legitimately hunt for Bigfoot with all sorts of varied equipment. So, who's to say lycanthropy is so out of the question? If you ask the residents of Defiance, Ohio, they'll tell you all about the fear that reigned over the town in that summer of 1972. The Black-Eyed Children. Legends of the Black-Eyed Children go back to 1996, when incidents of their encounters were first reported in a ghost-related mailing list out of Texas. These children had entirely black eyes and dead-like pale skin. Just the horrors of the way they looked were enough to scare anyone away. It's said that these children would usually appear near residential areas. They would either beg for money or hitchhike. On most occasions, they would try and indulge people in conversation or ask them to do something for them. While it's usually hard to say no to children in need, these kids are specifically spooky and far from anything human. Anyone in their sane mind would run for their lives instead of stopping and helping them. There aren't many accounts of what they sound like or where they go after scaring someone, which is exactly what makes this tale so interesting. We can't for sure tell if these kids are supernatural, extraterrestrial, or maybe some kind of a unfortunate deformation. And of course, they could simply not exist at all. In one bone-chilling event reported about the black-eyed children, a mother in Vermont made the unfortunate mistake of inviting 2 toddlers with black eyes into her home in January of 2016. She heard a soft knock on the front door as a blizzard raged outside. 2 kids, a girl and a boy, begged to use her phone as they stood there, shivering. The woman welcomed them even though she did suspect something was shady and proceeded to get her phone. The mother noticed the children's eyes were totally black when they came into the living room where there was more light. Her husband's nose started to bleed as she gaped in horror at them, and at that moment, the power went out. The kids finally announced their parents' arrival in unison after what seemed like a lifetime. The woman saw the 2 silently leave her home and get into a plain black sedan driven by a man in a suit. The woman's spouse was given a serious skin cancer diagnosis not long after the bizarre meeting, and she herself started having frequent nosebleeds, along with a host of other health problems. She believed the black-eyed children she unintentionally allowed into their home are to blame for her deteriorating health, as well as that of her husband. In another encounter, a 12-year-old child had a terrifying event in a store parking lot on March 17, 2008. He observed a child walking across the parking lot as he waited in his mother's truck for her to finish getting a haircut. The boy pounded on the window until the other boy turned because he thought it was a friend from school. The child in the truck realized it wasn't his pal and watched in disbelief as the odd kid approached and peered through the window. The child only needed to take one look into the other boy's intensely dark eyes to realize he was staring into the face of evil. The black-eyed child pleaded, "You must let me in." The youngster in the car cowered under the glove box in a panic. The boy with the black eyes ultimately vanished after some time. The boy's mother informed her son that the black-eyed child had entered the salon and demanded the keys to her car. Luckily for all, the boy's mother resisted. But that's not all. November 19th, 1992. A man was binge-watching Evil Dead while his wife and kids slept peacefully in the upstairs bedrooms. After the movie, he made the decision to go to bed at 1:30 a.m. His front door was suddenly being pounded on, loudly, and what was behind the door would permanently change his life. A boy and a girl, ages 8 and 11, stood there, barefoot in the Michigan winter, without looking up. Despite his confusion, the man let the children inside so they could call their parents, but when he went to give them the phone, they were gone. He initially heard a scream coming from one of the upstairs bedrooms. He ran upstairs, and when he entered his wife's room, he was horrified to see her, lying in a pool of blood, hearing bones breaking and skin tearing. And he saw the bare feet of those children he had just let into the house. In spite of the man's best efforts, he was powerless to save his children and stood helpless behind the door. When the act was finished, the door slowly creaked open, and there stood the barefoot children, covered in blood. They stood defiantly, with horrible grins and eyes that were completely black. In a suburban area of the United States, a woman was spending Thanksgiving alone when she heard a knock at her door, just after 7:30 p.m. She opened it without looking, assuming it was one of her neighbors. But there were two boys standing in a eerie position, avoiding eye contact and insisting on going inside. The oldest of the two boys persisted until the mother got uneasy, and when they finally glanced up, the woman saw they had completely black eyes. They kept knocking on the door after she slammed it behind her. She eventually dozed off during the early hours of the morning with all the lights on, as well as her television, but when she woke up, she discovered that the lights had been switched off and that the television was broadcasting static. Someone, or something, had been inside her home. Like a trend, these stories have been surfacing one after the other. What's astonishing is that these black-eyed children somehow made it to the United Kingdom as well. A teenage couple from Staffordshire reported a chilling encounter with a black-eyed child. The couple, who was 17 back when the incident occurred, reported that the ghostly figure of a child had been roaming around their tent throughout the night while they were camping. This incident is fairly recent. It occurred during the summer of 2021. The couple had heard movement outside their tent in the night and dismissed it initially, until they thought they heard clear footsteps. And then they made that very common mistake of chasing noises and sounds in a scary location. They went out to take a look at whoever it was, only to be shocked as they found a little girl was running around, hiding behind the trees. It wasn't until a few minutes later, when the girl finally stepped out, that the couple noticed her eyes. This also brings me to think that in most encounters, people didn't spot the black eyes immediately. It was only until they had actually made a conversation or when things got out of hand. These children probably look very real, and encounters with them also lead to the victims facing a lifetime of consequences. Unlike other ghostly creatures who appear in front of the human eye, these children are harmful. The couple then heard giggling that echoed all around them. Scared to death, they ended up hiding in their tent again until sunrise. When they got up and decided to leave at around 7 a.m., they saw stones all across their tent, and they were placed at even distances from each other. They also saw a lot of sticks hanging from the trees around them. It was obvious that their encounter the previous night was not some kind of misunderstanding. While leaving, they saw a little child with black eyes sitting behind a tree, and the minute they laid eyes on the kid, they started screaming with fear and terror. The man recalls hearing the kid say, "Leave us alone." Adding to the intrigue, in that part of England, legend says there was a child who was murdered in the early 1960s and has been around ever since. Author Lee Brickley released around 4 books over the past decade with stories and research about these children. He also claims to have his own encounters with the black-eyed kids on multiple occasions. His own stories might be the reason he got into researching it in the first place. He once saw a kid with black eyes who vanished minutes after being spotted by him. This is one of those rare instances where the child was reported to have completely vanished into thin air. Lee Brickley writes, quote, "I believe the woods are haunted with many spirits of the dead. There are also lots of monster sightings that happen here, and I think those creatures come from another, much darker place." Stories like these are obviously traumatic for the victims, but at the same time, they become a sensation in the entertainment industry. Everything about our days is mostly storytelling, and who wouldn't want to turn an urban legend into a major motion picture? Throughout the history of cinema, one simple line has helped many horror films reach massive success. Based on true events. While most people dismissed these stories, many ghost hunters took the matter more seriously. These spooky kids have a bigger picture to them than just being ghosts. Some experts called them monsters, vampires, and other legendary creatures of the night. The problem here is that no one has been able to actually touch or feel the creatures, let alone capture them on video or in a photograph to prove their existence. One more encounter I found particularly interesting was back in 2010. A man called Noetic saw two black-eyed teenagers outside his office in Ohio. He was working a night shift and decided to take a break to smoke a cigarette. He went outside and saw two boys across the street staring straight at him. After a while of feeling uneasy, Noetic went back to work inside the office. A while later, he noticed on the security monitors that the boys were standing outside at the office door, staring right at the camera, indicating for him to come outside. Annoyed, Noetic decided to call the police and report the boys, but as if the boys knew what he was up to, they indicated for him to not do anything of that sort, since they only needed to make a call from his phone. Regardless, Noetic ended up calling the police when the boys didn't leave and kept a constant eye on them through the screen. When the police arrived, they couldn't find any evidence of those children he had seen on the screen. So, what are the black-eyed children? Are they supernatural, paranormal, of another world? Well, the fact is, there's no real evidence of the black-eyed children. That's right, every account you just heard was the stuff of modern legend. Even in our era of constant information being accessible from all over the world, the black-eyed children are a bunch of stories with no one claiming they actually happened to them, for the most part. Every story I read to you here today had no specific name, just a date. That should always be a red flag, that a story may not be entirely true. But that being said, I wanted to do an episode about the black-eyed children because, simply put, legends and folklore are wonderful. I love listening and learning about legends, folklore, folk tales, anything like that. Well, the black-eyed children is a more modern take, but it is folklore nonetheless. But that doesn't make the stories any less exciting to hear. I hope that while you were sitting down and listening to this program, you were feeling very creeped out and wondering if you were going to hear a knock on your door too. But at the end of the day, the Black-Eyed Children is a folktale spread by the internet incredibly fast, and most likely, nothing more. The Fouke Monster. Stories of the famous Sasquatch, more commonly known as Bigfoot, have existed for as long as oral folklore has. They are stories that everyone knows regardless of country of origin and language spoken. The Sasquatch has remained an enduring part of popular culture and is arguably responsible for the field of cryptozoology, a scientific study of animals considered to be mythical or of folklore. Many different creatures of this kind of common species have been reported over the years, such as the Honey Island swamp monster, Momo the monster, and the skunk ape, to name just a few, let alone the Yeti, the abominable snowman, and many more. However, Save for the original story of Bigfoot, no Sasquatch legend has been in the public eye more than that of our topic tonight. Beginning like most as a local legend before rising to a mainstay of regional folklore, and then national fascination. This legend could perhaps go back as far as the early 1900s, but it wasn't until the early 1970s that the legend picked up more steam due to various reports and eventually a hit independent film that became a staple of drive-in theaters across America. This is the story of a mysterious creature that roamed the lands of rural Arkansas. It is the story of the Fouke Monster. In Arkansas, at the time after World War II, those returning from war were settling down and starting families. For many in the state and the country, it was a transition back to a normal life. But world history obviously would go on to show there were challenges ahead, and while those residing in Arkansas would be affected like the rest of the country, they had their own problem about to flare up. Prior to the 20th century, several alleged sightings in the general area of Fouke, Arkansas, related to the large hairy creature circulated in an 1851 report in the Memphis Inquirer and an 1856 report in the Caddo Gazette. Various accounts in later years described it as being a large, bipedal creature covered in long, dark hair. It was estimated to be about 7 feet tall, with a weight of between 250 to 300 pounds. Later reports claimed that it was far larger than that, with one witness describing it as 10 feet tall with an estimated weight of over 800 pounds. Some accounts describe the Fouke Monster as running swiftly with a galloping gait and swinging its arms in a fashion similar to a monkey. Reports also describe it as having a terrible odor, the odor being described as a combination of a skunk and a wet dog, and as having bright red eyes about the size of silver dollars. A variety of tracks and claw marks have been discovered which are claimed to belong to the creature. One set of footprints reportedly measured 17 inches in length and 7 inches wide, while another appeared to show feet that only possessed 3 toes. Local residents claim that this creature had roamed the area since 1964, but those sightings had not been reported. Local folklore also holds that the creature can be further traced back to sightings in 1946. Most early sightings were allegedly in the region of Jonesville, which led to the creature being known as the Jonesville Monster during this period. In 1955, the creature was allegedly spotted by a 14-year-old boy who described it as having reddish-brown hair, sniffing the air, and not reacting when it was first fired upon, with birdshot. Investigator Joe Nickel observed that the description was consistent with a misidentified black bear. Another local story takes place in the spring of 1966. A call went out to police to investigate the death of an elderly farmer. The man's body was found in his barn with crushing injuries to the chest and the man's arms ripped from their sockets, his legs supposedly having been ripped off as well. A pitchfork was found nearby, stained with blood. It had been buried into the creature. The many interviews of the locals provided stories of so many close Bigfoot sightings. There were supposedly families of Sasquatches in the area. Law enforcement agencies involved decided not to mention Bigfoot as the cause of death and blamed the bull in the barn despite the bull being locked up in its stall and not a drop of blood on its body. A writer named Philip Steele would include this occurrence in his book, Ozark Tales and Superstitions. The incident occurred just off of Highway 303, heading north from Highway 412. That area is close to the Madison-Washington County line. It was now 1971, and this creature was about to become the thing of legend. On May 2nd, 1971, Bobby and Elizabeth Ford were at home when they were attacked. According to Elizabeth Ford, the creature, which she initially thought was a bear, reached through a screen window that night while she was sleeping on her couch. It was chased away by her husband and his brother, Don. During the alleged encounter, the Fords fired several gunshots at the creature and believed that they had hit it, though no traces of blood were found. An extensive search of the area failed to locate the creature, but 3-toed footprints were found close to the house, as well as scratch marks on the porch and damage to a window, as well as the house's siding. The Fords would state that while they had heard something moving around outside late at night several nights prior, having lived in the house for less than a week, they had never encountered the creature before. Jim Powell, then a reporter for the Texarkana Gazette and the Texarkana Daily News, and Dave Hall, then director of Texarkana radio station KTFS, went to Ford's place and found a terrified family moving out of the home it had owned for less than a week. Powell wrote an article that appeared in the newspaper, outlining the family's alleged sighting and attack. The next day, both the Texarkana Gazette and the Texarkana Daily published the same follow-up story. It contained the first reference to the name Fouke Monster. The Associated Press and United Press International wire services transmitted the article to newspapers across the nation. Then on May 23, 1971, the monster was spotted once more. D.C. Woods Jr., Wilma Woods, and Mrs. R.H. Sedgas reported seeing an ape-like creature crossing U.S. Highway 71. More sightings were made over the following months by local residents and tourists, who found additional footprints. The best-known footprints were found in a soybean field belonging to local filling station owner Scott Keith. They were scrutinized by game warden Carl Gallion, who was unable to confirm their authenticity. Like the Ford prints, they appeared to indicate that the creature had only 3 toes. These incidents began to attract substantial interest after news spread about the sightings. The Little Rock, Arkansas radio station KAAY posted a $1,090 bounty on the creature, roughly $8,500 when adjusted for inflation to 2024. Several attempts were made to track the creature using dogs, but they were unable to follow its scent. When hunters began to take interest in the Fouke Monster, Miller County Sheriff Leslie Greer was forced to put a temporary no-guns policy in place in order to preserve public safety. In 1971, 3 people were fined $59 each for, quote, filing a fraudulent monster report. By late 1974, interest had waned and sightings all but stopped, only to begin again in March of 1978 when tracks were reportedly found by 2 brothers prospecting in Russellville, Arkansas. There were also sightings in nearby Center Ridge. On June 26th of that same year, a sighting was reported in Crossett, Arkansas. During this period, the creature was blamed for missing livestock and attacks on several dogs. Since the initial cluster of sightings during the 1970s, there have been sporadic reports of the creature. In 1991, the creature was reportedly seen jumping from a bridge. There were 40 reported sightings in 1997, and in 1998, the creature was reportedly sighted in a dry creek bed 5 miles south of Fouke. 1 month after the Ford sighting, Southern State College, now known as Southern Arkansas University, archaeologist Frank Skombach determined that, quote, there is a 99% chance the tracks are a hoax. According to Skombach, the tracks could not be from a species of ape, as claimed by witnesses, because they were from a 3-toed creature, whereas all primates, including hominids, have 5 toes. In addition to the number of toes, Skombach cited several other anomalies as part of his conclusion. The region had no history of primate activity, ruling out the possibility of the creature being the remnants of an indigenous species. All apes are completely diurnal, or in layman's terms, most active during daylight. as the Fouke Monster was reported to be nocturnal, or of the night. By 1986, the mayor of Fouke, Virgil Roberts, and former Miller County Sheriff Leslie Greer were of the opinion that the alleged Fouke Monster tracks were man-made. Greer's working colleague at that time, Chief Deputy H.L. Phillips, said that he had not taken calls regarding the monster in years. He does not believe the creature exists, stating, quote, "I don't believe in it, but I'd say you don't argue with people who say they've seen it. Many were respectable and responsible folks." The Skeptoid podcast concluded, quote, "So, in total, every last shred of evidence that the Fouke Monster exists at all is anecdotal. Not a single piece is testable. The Fouke Monster fits very poorly with the model of a living animal, but fits very well with a local legend." Like many monstrous folklore, the story of the Fouke Monster traveled quickly by word of mouth and the printed press while the sightings were first happening. While Fouke Monster is the name that is stuck, other names the creature has gone by include the Swamp Stalker, and perhaps, most famously of all, the Boggy Creek Monster. The latter in particular is what helped the story gain national fame in 1972 when filmmaker Charles B. Pierce created the docudrama horror film The Legend of Boggy Creek. The film takes inspiration from mostly the encounter of the Fords, but does also include other parts of the legend and various encounters, reportedly made for $160,000, or roughly $1.2 million in 2024. The Legend of Boggy Creek earned a reported total of $20 million at the box office, which, when adjusted for inflation to 2024 money, is a staggering $155,454,814.81 as of this recording, making The Legend of Boggy Creek, at its time, the most successful independent film in the world. Pierce would later go on to make several other regional Texarkana-based films, such as The Town That Dreaded Sundown, The Evictors, and the only official sequel to the first film in Boggy Creek 2, and the legend continues. However, since the release of the first film, several unofficial sequels and spin-offs have been produced. These include 1977's Return to Boggy Creek, 2010's Boggy Creek, The Legend is True, 2011's The Legacy of Boggy Creek, 2016's Boggy Creek Monster, and on television in 2019, Boggy Creek the Series, which, by the way, is worth noting, was directed by yours truly, and you can find it streaming for free on Tubi TV. Beginning in 2013, the Fouke Monster Festival, previously called the Boggy Creek Festival, has been an annual event dedicated to discussions, presentations, and lore related to the creature and other similar monsters. Proceeds benefit the Fouke School District, with over $3,000 having been raised in 2019 alone. And there you have it. Like many stories pertaining to the supernatural and monstrous beings, we may never know for sure if the Fouke Monster is legitimately out and about in Texarkana, or if it's simply a campfire story. While the Boggy Creek Monster has not warranted as many scientific investigations as its plain Jane Bigfoot counterpart, it still holds the attention of those with an interest in cryptozoology. A large part of that can be attributed to Pierce's film, and is certainly the case for those outside of the area of Arkansas. Yet for those within Fouke and the surrounding area, it remains a story to be passed by word of mouth, and has become such a part of the community that it has its own festival. While Bigfoot might be the creature most looked to, perhaps the Fouke Monster rivals or even surpasses the original legend. With that all being said, if you find yourself down in Fouke or anywhere within the Texarkana area, you might want to come prepared and stay vigilant. After all, while enough time has passed that the Phantom Killer is no longer out there, you may just find yourself face to face with the Fouke Monster and become an addition to the legend of the creek. Bigfoot in Ohio. In the vast wilderness of Ohio, folklore speaks of a creature both mythical and terrifying, known to many as Bigfoot. You've heard the legends, right? Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape, whatever you want to call it. This towering beast, folklore tells us, prowls these woods, leaving footprints in the mud larger than the largest boots anyone could own. By now, you might be raising an eyebrow, though. Bigfoot? Really? But there's no denying that lurking within the quiet, untraveled paths of Ohio's wilderness are haunting tales of a mysterious and unnerving creature. Stories so horrifying, they make the Conjuring series seem tame in comparison. Now, is the Bigfoot of Ohio a creative byproduct of a bunch of overactive imaginations? Maybe an age-old myth? Or is it a strange, elusive cryptid hiding in the shadows? No one can say for sure, yet we continue to be captivated by these terror-inducing encounters. Their chilling narrative, whether real or fabricated, spins a web of intrigue that has entranced crafty enthusiasts and cryptography buffs for years. In a time long ago, as Native American tribes sought solace around the warm embrace of a crackling fire, stories slowly spread like whispers through the wilderness. What began as mere murmurs soon seeped into the very fabric of the culture, weaving itself into tales of a creature hidden in the woods. A figure, neither beast nor man, but a ghastly fusion of realities, with fur matted like unkempt hair and footprints larger than any normal man could ever leave behind. The legend of Bigfoot was born. The Ojibwe tribe, whose roots run deep within the Great Lakes region of the United States and Canada, hold a particularly uncanny legend of their own, the Wendigo. Now, here's where it gets seriously spooky. Legend has it the Wendigo was just an ordinary guy like you or me, until he was possessed by an evil spirit, turning to cannibalism during a harsh winter. Then he transformed into this monstrous being, tall as a pine tree, skin as rough as bark, and an insatiable hunger for, would you guess, human flesh. Unslaked by any morsel of sustenance, he prowled unseen depths of the woods. Terrifying, yes. But the Wendigo, much like Bigfoot, serves as a grave reminder of the consequences of greed, a bone-chilling example of the great imbalance spawned by our actions. These tales are more than mere stories, however. They are echoes of ancient wisdom sown into our civilization's very soul. Now, there's $1 million question here. How does the Wendigo connect to our modern-day Sasquatch? Well, there are striking parallels between the two. Both are large, both are hairy, and both are portrayed as elusive wilderness dwellers. The state of Ohio, often overlooked and vastly underestimated, is more than just a midpoint state. Holding the 4th position in BetOhio's rankings, this Midwestern state contributes to roughly 5.7% of total credible Bigfoot sightings reported in the United States. Ohio's Bigfoot, lovingly dubbed the Grassman by many, seems to have a knack for the Appalachian foothills of eastern Ohio. Maybe it's the serenity, or perhaps the plentiful cover. But our hairy friend tends to favor these very secluded spots, much like this one. Don't believe me? Well, just ask the fine folks over at the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Their eyes and ears stay peeled for any rustles, footfalls, or hoots out of the ordinary, and boy have they got stories to tell. According to their records, a neat 315 grassman sightings have been recorded throughout Ohio since 1974. Understandably, these harrowing encounters, ominous footprints, and chilling whoops and hollers have been seeping deeper into local legend and putting the fear of the grassman into many locals' hearts. When it comes to Bigfoot enthusiasts, Mark DeWerth ranks high on the list. This well-regarded Bigfoot researcher recalls being followed by a Bigfoot himself as he emerged from an old Ohio strip mine. But he is not the only one. Another report comes from two hikers who ventured into Salt Fork State Park and ended up with a tale they would never forget: a close encounter with the mysterious Bigfoot. But the puzzling incidents are by no means confined to the distant past. They continue to the present day, as fresh as the morning dew on Ohio's grass. Jefferson and Mahoning counties have reported their most recent Bigfoot encounters in July of 2021. Over in Jefferson County, amidst the curious case of missing chickens, came the startling discovery of large, non-human footprints close to Bloomingdale. The mystery that unraveled in Mahoning County is quite unsettling. A couple returned home only to witness a hairy spectacle: a Bigfoot nonchalantly crossing their driveway on the outskirts of Columbiana. Another group ventured through southeast Ohio in pursuit of the elusive Sasquatch, their explorations within the renowned Salt Fork State Park truly encapsulating the essence of mystery and intrigue that surrounds this legendary being. Despite the evaluation that the video featuring a potential Sasquatch shaking a tree may not, in fact, contain the evasive creature, one can't help but be swept up in their persistent fascination and unquenchable spirit of inquiry. Their strategic decision to divide into two teams, covering more ground and utilizing distinct perspectives, boosts the perceived credibility of the endeavor, even if it did kind of sound like a bad decision from a horror movie. One particularly thrilling moment arose when they captured what very well could have been a Sasquatch call. The distant scream echoing through the quiet tableau of the forest sent shivers down the spine and led viewers to the edge of their seats, wondering what might respond. Their expedition underscores an important point. While the sought-after answers may remain unclear, the journey itself, steeped in mystery and teetering on the precipice of discovery, is undeniably very captivating. It's clear that their quest continues, and more such enthralling expeditions lie in their future. Bigfoot Mysteries, an adventurous trek through Salt Fork State Park. The Bigfoot of Salt Fork State Park is more than just a legendary beast. It's a symbol of the allure of the unknown, a story that sparks curiosity and a desire for adventure in all of us. A couple out for some squirrel hunting in 2018 were caught off guard by a blood-curdling howl. And guess what? They couldn't figure out what it was. This led this daring pair through the twists and turns of Salt Fork State Park's forested paths, churning out stories that would raise the hair on the back of your neck. In this wilderness, they found guidance in the knowledge of John Hickenbottom, a local naturalist. His deep affection for the forest, its tales, and his belief that the recurring cycle of growth and decline in the forest could have ties to Bigfoot sightings made him a beacon in their exciting expedition. Immersing them in fragments of history, Hickenbottom revealed stories of wild man attacks in 1869, settlers' folklore in the flourishing Ohio, and even Daniel Boone's personal Bigfoot encounter near the Ohio-Kentucky border, which I'll come back to later. Their journey led them to Bigfoot Ridge, a surreal daytime picnic spot that morphs into a mysterious zone after the sun goes down, and the historic Hozak Cave. The cave, awash with claims and hoaxes, posed doubts, but the allure of an unidentified footprint discovered near its entrance intensified their interest. The peaceful lakeside, known for gigantic rock pelting incidents, and the group campsites buzzing with tales of eerie sounds and unseen eyes, had their way of amplifying the suspense of their exploration. From an unbiased standpoint, Hickenbottom, a pure scientist, regarded skepticism as crucial, straddling the fine line between blatant disbelief and blind acceptance. He advocated for open-minded curiosity. When questioned if Bigfoot was real, he replied, "It really depends on what your definition of real is. My kind of guy." Signifying that Bigfoot, like the infinite natural world, remains vast and uncharted and carries a powerful ability to spark interest in nature's and Ozark howlers. There's an intriguing expose of a story from the life of the legendary Daniel Boone, a truly revered figure in the annals of American frontiersmen. According to legend and the account of his biographer John Mack Farragher, Boone had a strange encounter with a massive 10-foot-tall creature. This creature, or Yahoo, as it was referred to by Boone himself, shared similarities with the mythical creatures from the popular literature of the time, namely Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. Now, coming to Daniel Boone's story, this larger-than-life character, a seasoned hunter familiar with the forest's enigmatic presence, reportedly crossed paths with an unusual creature in his long sojourn through the woods. An inquisitive spirit, Boone possessed an uncanny ability to recount his thrilling experiences, leaving listeners captivated by his tales. One such tale, as confirmed by his esteemed biographer Farragher, was particularly interesting. The legend states that during a gala dinner in Limestone, where Boone was visiting his cousin, he began narrating his exotic encounter with a colossal Yahoo, a 10-foot hairy giant. His story derived inspiration from his favorite book, Gulliver's Travels, where Yahoos were depicted as giant beasts in human shape. Boone's claim, though, received with a healthy dose of skepticism, ignited intrigue among all who listened. But Boone's uneasy tryst with mysterious entities went beyond Yahoos. After leaving Kentucky for the territories west of the Mississippi River in Missouri, Boone was reportedly involved in a couple of uncanny incidents with the Ozark Howler. This legendary creature, prevalent in the folklore across Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas, is commonly described as being bear-sized, bearing glowing red eyes, elegantly prominent horns, and supported by a thickly built body with stocky legs and black, shaggy hair. While the authenticity of Boone's claims might be shrouded in the fog of history, his anecdotes managed to add further depth to the captivating lore of Salt Fork State Park. Boone's spellbinding tales of outlandish beasts all served to fuel the belief that these forested lands hid mysteries that were waiting to be unraveled, mysteries that bore the mark of Bigfoot. Boone's theory comes to life if we are to believe that Bigfoot is real and that he has been hiding in the forests of Salt Fork State Park for centuries. While this might seem like a tall order to fill, it is important to remember that many people have claimed sightings of the creature over the years. In fact, some of these sightings were so convincing and terrifying that they even converted skeptics like a man simply known as Chris. Chris was a skeptic by nature, always approaching the world with a critical lens. He believed in evidence and logic, preferring truths that could be tested and proven over and over again, leaving no room for fanciful fables or mythical creatures. His life, however, was about to take a turn that would challenge his skepticism to its very core. On a crisp winter morning, March 17th, 2009, Chris reluctantly stepped out of the warm confines of his house, bundled up and ready to embrace the day. His loving wife had persuaded him to take a break from his usual routines, suggesting he embark on a hike to get some exercise. This is how Chris found himself at a park in eastern Ohio, surrounded by nature in its most silent form. He picked a random trail, lush green with hints of awakening from winter. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the noise of the world fell away, replaced by the hushed rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds, and his own rhythmic breath. Just off the beaten path, a sudden sound splintered the calm, a rustling followed by a swift and hurried movement like an unseen freight train racing through the undergrowth. Startled, Chris quickly returned to the marked trail, his heart pounding in his chest. But fate had other plans. As he continued his journey, he heard the disconcerting sound of distinct, human-like whistles slicing through the morning air. 3 of them. Though no human was in sight or ear's reach, not a bird's song, he thought. These whistles lacked the lull and pitches commonly associated with alien vocalizations. The crescendo of this strange symphony awaited him ahead. A sudden flash of white caught his eye. He looked, and his heart froze. There, at a distance, stood an enormous creature, covered in matted, dreadlock-like fur. Standing an estimated 8 feet tall, its broad shoulders spanned over 4 feet, and the white figure was looking right back at him. It was like nothing he had seen before, yet somewhat resembling descriptions he had always dismissed, those of Bigfoot, but indisputably real in its terrifying stature. His feet moved almost in a daze, carrying him back to his truck, glancing back only to see the creature dash away. Chris, for the first time in his life, felt the chill of working wheels in his head grinding to a halt, confronted by an experience that defied his rational beliefs. That was the day this skeptic was shaken from his grounded reality. The day he understood that life was full of gray areas, slipping through the black and white cookie-cutter perception he always held. A chance encounter, a terrifying creature, and a lifetime of beliefs capsized. Chris began to see the world around him in a new light, humbled, startled, and full of unanswered mysteries. Every mystery starts somewhere. Since the dawn of this Bigfoot mystery, theories have sprouted and branched out, much like these very forests sheltering our elusive beast. The first echoes the belief in Bigfoot as a relic hominid, a remnant of our ancient human ancestors that sought refuge within the wilderness's heart to escape the tide of evolution. Supported by eerie sightings and chilling footprints, this idea treads a thin line between reality and myth, buoyed by a lack of hard evidence like bones or DNA. Critics discount this theory as wishful thinking at best, yet it leaves us with a tantalizing question. Could our past be quietly living in our present? Tread a bit further and we encounter proponents postulating Bigfoot as an unrecognized primate species, concealing itself within the vast untamed landscapes. They say this creature exists unbeknownst to science. The idea invites ready skepticism considering our advanced exploration and mapping efforts. But how many times has the unexpected surfaced from beneath our assumptions? Now, if we segue into the domain of the extraordinary, Bigfoot starts to take on a supernatural contour, an interdimensional entity capable of materializing and disappearing at its whim. Ridiculous, some might say, but an enduring belief among enthusiasts renders it the quality of an urban myth, one that satisfies our thirst for the fantastical explanations. that's for sure. However, mainstream science tugs our anchor back to more naturalistic interpretations. Then we have the pragmatists, grounding us in their belief that Bigfoot sightings are mere misinterpretations of known animals or humans. Something tangible, identifiable, and safe. The critics counter this, however, pointing towards the consistency in Bigfoot sightings and finds. You have giant footprints evoking the visage of an enormous hominid. How can we discard it all just to be mistaken identities, then? Despite these wildly different belief sets, our purpose aligns. To learn, to decode, to validate, or to upend. Researchers plunge into nature's secret-keeping green folds, prompted by unusual sightings, ready to scour, probe, and document. Do they find enough? Do they unravel the grand secret? Are we ready for it when they do? We'd be fools not to question the reasons behind this persistent fascination, this relentless pursuit of perhaps our wildest myth. Could it be the allure of discovering a new species? A momentous breakthrough that could redefine our understanding of evolution itself? Is it the spell that Bigfoot has cast on our shared imagination? The curious allure of the fantastical and unknown? Or is it entirely about preserving a possibly endangered species, only whispered in hushed undertones, but never seen? Our quest for Bigfoot, though high in spirit, is a path ridden with challenges. Remote locations guarded by inhospitable terrain, the unreliability of human perception casting doubt on eyewitness reports, and the unavailability of sufficient funding throw curves at us. Subconscious influences of popular culture blur our objectivity, while the human propensity for seeing familiarity in the unfamiliar often leads us down incorrect paths. There's a dedicated tribe of researchers and scientists, tireless enthusiasts braving the shadows of mysteries and the unknown, forever hunting for answers on the existence of our friend Bigfoot. Days turn into nights, weeks turn into months, and yet the passion, it remains unscathed. Among the layers of evidence that came into existence over years of research and exploration, there are a few that definitely stand out, rising above the rest like a lighthouse amidst a stormy sea. Let's rewind to 1967, the time of the Patterson-Gimlin film, an incident etched into the chronicles of our quest. This peculiar footage sparked an uproar that has refused to die down even after decades. The shaky video, though low on clarity, presented a sight so incredible that it shook the sphere of cryptozoology. A gargantuan figure that screamed anything but the ordinary. It was as astonishing as it was terrifying, igniting promises of a world existing beyond our documented knowledge. Entering the millennium, we encountered another fascinating find. The Skookum cast of 2000. A group of intrepid researchers discovered a peculiar imprint in the mud deep within the dense forest of Washington state. No ordinary footprint, this was a silhouette of something huge, something that had seemingly reclined in the mud. The detailed anatomical features visible on the cast sparked contention across the scientific communities. Some experts, including wildlife biologists and forensic anthropologists, tilted towards the idea of an undiscovered primate creating the impression. In contrast, critics postulated it as the handiwork of familiar animals, such as elk or deer. Fast forward to the Harley Hoffman footage in the exquisitely wild Northeast Ohio. This piece, replete with the thrill of the chase, harbored footage of a large, hairy apparition strolling nonchalantly through the woods. Hoffman recounted this extraordinary encounter, which he chanced upon during a hike, yet critics pointed towards the shaky, potentially manipulated footage, dismissing it as a possible hoax, an ordinary individual cloaked in a costume. Despite elaborate claims and counterclaims, definitive, universally accepted evidence of Bigfoot remains as elusive as the creature itself. Yet the tales of this creature continue to echo through our collective consciousness, fueling fascination and birthing mystery. Whether Bigfoot is a relic hominid, an unknown ape species, or an intricate figment of our collective imaginations, it has woven itself into the fabric of our culture. As long as there exists dense forests to harbor shadows and unexplored wilderness to ignite imaginations, the legend of Bigfoot will survive. The quest to unveil the enigma, to chase the unchased, will continue, an emblem of our thirst for knowledge, for the thrill of discovery, for the sheer joy of the chase. No matter how much we debunk the existence of the cryptic creature known as Bigfoot, sightings just keep surfacing, challenging our skepticism again and again and again. In an incident, two fearless hikers embark on an adventure through a southern Ohio park, the air rippling with anticipation, their eyes wide open for the unexpected. Little would they know that their expedition into the woodlands of Salt Fork State Park was about to become one of the most spine-chilling tales ever recounted. These explorers, equipped with a drone, navigate through the eerie silence of the park, documenting their escapades, a modern-day fusion of technology and raw, untouched wilderness. One of our hikers, only identified as Eric, holds his breath, spotting something that defies comprehension in the shadows. Were they prepared for what the woods had in store for them? Absolutely not. Suddenly, they were confronted with the sight of a towering, hairy creature ambling steadily on 2 feet, emanating strange, blood-curdling noises like something ripped out of a nerve-wracking folklore. The thrill of adventure pulses through their veins as they struggle to comprehend the unimaginable. Is this the legendary creature known as Bigfoot, gracing them with its presence? The production quality of the video is strikingly well crafted, each frame wrapped in suspense as they recount their gripping sojourn through the park. The fine line between reality and myth blurs further as we ponder what they discovered deep within the forests of Ohio. Was it an actual Bigfoot sighting or an elaborate hoax, a mere figure clad in a costume? As the legend of Bigfoot clashes with the cold concrete walls of scientific skepticism, credible evidence remains elusive. Cryptic tales are challenged by scientists as potential hoaxes, and simply folklore. The revelation of this story might stay obscured in the shadows of the paranormal, but our appetite for the unexplained and inexplicable remains a testament to the exploratory spirit within all of us. As the lines between reality and myth continue to blur, we shall never be satisfied with the mundane, and the spirit of adventure will always endure. As we continue to unravel these mysterious occurrences, we must also shed light on other peculiar encounters that have taken place in the Buckeye State. Drawing from the annals of reported incidents, we find yet another intriguing encounter corroborating the uncanny series of events that have unfolded so far. Casting our eyes back into the sequestered landscapes of Ohio, we stumble upon another tale that presents an eerie parallel. A tale so fascinating that it further fuels the conversation around the existence of the enigmatic Bigfoot. In the quiet vicinity of a rural home not too far from Columbus, Suzanne Farrakak contended with the eerie sound echoing around her. This was not the first time Suzanne experienced such strange incidents around her abode. Proximity to the wilderness often sparked encounters that were, we'll say, out of the ordinary. On this particular night, Suzanne was confident the primal, unfamiliar howls belonged to none other than the elusive creature of folklore fame, Bigfoot. Throughout the years, there had been several accounts of Bigfoot sightings in her area, and now she felt she had made her own encounter, one that was experienced not through the lens of sight, but notably alive, in sound. This conviction wasn't achieved overnight. Suzanne was no stranger to the subject of mysterious creatures, especially Bigfoot. Her first brush with the beast dates back to a chilly night in 2013, when, while driving down a southeast road in Loudonville, she claimed to have seen Bigfoot. The gigantic figure jumping across the road fit the description often associated with the creature, about 7.5 foot tall and embodying a hulking mass of hair. From then on, her rustic home turned into an inadvertent Bigfoot surveillance point. Unusual knocks and howls, coupled with sightings in the quiet woods behind her property, peppered her daily life. Years since her first sighting, one July 3rd, the territory around her home broke its eerie silence when the deep rumble of an uncanny howl resonated. Amidst bursts of fireworks echoing in the valley, a chorus of coyotes was seemingly interrupted by more intense howls. Suzanne didn't miss a beat. She believed it was Bigfoot making his entry in the dead of the night. Skeptics around her suggested alternative explanations. The sounds could have very well belonged to an alpha male coyote attempting to call its pack. Despite the speculation, everyone agreed in the admission that the sounds did not match known animal calls in exactitude. Examining Suzanne's recording, there seems to be a peculiar intersection where belief, curiosity, and scientific understanding meet. While the specifics of the source remain debatable, the event has added another dimension to the legend of Bigfoot in the state of Ohio. After this eerie encounter, Suzanne decided to invest in a more expensive audio recorder, suggesting her exploration to record the unseen was far from over. As part of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, this event only fueled their fascination, leading her to spend more time examining and corroborating new sightings and exploring Bigfoot's whereabouts. Skeptics might argue, but for Suzanne and those sharing her belief, every uncanny howl echoing in the wildernesses of Ohio carries an underlying narrative. The tale of the creature we all know as Bigfoot. Through the shadowy labyrinths of mysteries that shroud Bigfoot encounters, we stumble upon tales that send chills down our spine and yet leave us clamoring for more. With every chilling encounter, whether it's the daunting sightings in Ohio or elsewhere, we find ourselves caught in an irresistible pursuit of the unknown, forever drawn towards this enduring figure of intrigue as we stitch together these pieces of the grand puzzle. We're compelled to question why. Despite the skepticism and technology-led demystification, a significant number of people continue to believe in Bigfoot's existence. We find ourselves led down a path that merges modern-day scientific skepticism with an immutable human fascination for narratives that arouse our primal fear and curiosity. With each stride into the depths of the woods, we stir the echoes of our curious minds, seeking to solve this elusive mystery of Bigfoot. Every crackling twig underfoot, each rustle concealed in the dark whispers of the leaves is an invitation to confront the unknown. With this backdrop of poignant curiosity and a resolute desire to unravel the mysteries, we ask, why do so many people still want to believe in Bigfoot? In an era where technology has advanced leaps and bounds and when skepticism in the realm of supernatural beings runs rampant, Bigfoot sightings and encounters keep their pace, leaving a trail of fascination and disbelief in their wake. This phenomena implores us to probe deeper into the fabric of human imaginings and connections with the wild realms of nature. In the fall of 1958, the world was jolted by the news of giant footprints found in California dubbing the unknown creature behind them Bigfoot. Decades later, the enigmatic giant continues to hold its place in American folklore, despite a massive lack of concrete evidence to support its existence. The Smithsonian Magazine raises an important question. Why is Bigfoot still so popular and prevalent in modern culture? Humans have a natural affinity for storytelling and myth-making. We find solace in the idea of untamed nature and our separation from it. Bigfoot sightings may provide some kind of a visceral thrill of the unknown, or perhaps a chance to reflect on what might have happened had humanity not crossed into the realms of civilization. For others, believing in Bigfoot serves as a testament to the spirit of exploration and undeniable curiosity that has driven human history. It delves into the frontier spirit and American values that still run deep within the nation's psyche. On the other hand, the enduring fascination with Bigfoot also taps into some less romantic aspects of human nature. Susceptibility to hoaxes, the obsessive quest for attention, and our inclination to sensationalize. The incessant tide of fake Bigfoot videos and dubious sightings flood the internet, making it increasingly challenging to focus on scientifically credible material. Technological advancements have fueled the growth of fabricated evidence and misinformation, creating an environment where the truth seems ever more difficult to determine. Bigfoot remains more comfortable dwelling in the realms of myth and speculation than physical reality. Yet, the belief in the existence of Bigfoot, despite skepticism, showcases the significance of folklore and the power of the human imagination in shaping how we perceive the world around us. This next one gets a little extra spooky because, honestly, if you're from Southwest Ohio like I am, odds are you've spent at least 1 or 2 weekends relaxing in Hocking Hills in one of the various cabins with all the sights to see and the hiking to be had. But there's more to it when you dive deeper. Hocking Hills has many eerie silhouettes, and when you look deeper into them, you uncover another spine-tingling encounter that unfolds amidst the foreboding whispers of the dark woods. This unsettling story weaves a tapestry of fear, anticipation, and utter disbelief, drawing us further into the shadowy realm of other curious incidents where mystery lingers around every single bend. Bea Mills, an intrepid outdoor explorer and nature enthusiast, reignites these tales. As the founder and director of the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Festival, her colorful encounters bring to life the mystery that lurks within these woods. In Bea's view, Bigfoot could be anything and everything: a spiritual being, an unknown mammal, an alien, or a supernatural entity. Yet for her, these creatures are as tangible as the rocks and trees of Hocking Hills themselves. The region's vast isolation cultivates a perfect stage for these encounters. From raccoon hunters spotting a large, hairy female Bigfoot with a baby on its back, to schoolgoers witnessing mammoth-like silhouettes, stories of the beast have found a home in the local lore. In Clear Creek, whispers about the Clear Creek Monster, believed to be Bigfoot, feed into the grand narrative. Bea's first-hand encounters with Bigfoot came unbidden, lulled by the eerily peaceful woods around her home. She started hearing unfamiliar, almost supernatural vocalizations. With her curiosity piqued, she delved into the lore and local legends. It culminated in her joining the Bigfoot Field Researchers, a community dedicated to unearthing the truth about this elusive creature. April 6, 2014 marked a significant turning point. Bea, along with a group of investigators, was out in the woods one clear moonlit night. Their tranquility, though, was disrupted when they spotted an unnerving figure approaching them from a distance. Their tranquility, though, was disrupted when they spotted an unnerving figure approaching them from a distance. Initially expecting a deer,
The group fought their heartbeats as an all-too-human figure lumbered towards them. For Bea, the world came to a standstill. Time seemed to stretch, and she looked on in complete and utter disbelief as the figure disappeared into the creek water nearby, eerily mimicking an elephant crashing through. Was it Bigfoot? The figure's swift yet noisy exit left a shiver trailing down their spines, muting their initial shock. Instinctively, they scrambled to alert the rest of their party over the radio, but found all their electronics were dead. The aftermath was as unsettling as the encounter itself. Shaken but undeterred, Bea continues to engage in these hunts, searching for clues and unpacking the enigma of Bigfoot. For her and many others, the mystery of Bigfoot is a siren's call, drawing them into the heart of the Hocking Hills area. It's a chilling dance of fear, awe, and fascination, an unending pursuit that lures seekers off beaten paths and into the mysterious shadows of nature. But there are worse ways to spend a day than in the beauty of Hocking Hills. Bigfoot, master of evasion or masterpiece of fiction. Now, we all know that these slick smartphones of ours capture everything from fun selfies and puppy dog pictures to just breathtaking sunsets, right? Strange then that in a world where beasts of all kinds are but a hashtag away, one elusive creature, Bigfoot, remains more of a narrative than visual evidence. I mean, let's cut to the chase. In an era where our tech-savvy toddlers could mug for a sweet selfie before they're even out of their diapers, how is it that Bigfoot can tiptoe through our modern world unseen and completely undetected? Is this creature an Einstein of evasion, surpassing our best trackers and outdoor enthusiasts? Or is he like a shadow, a figment of our collective imagination, thriving only in the fertile soil of fantastic folklore? Allow me to set the scene. The woods are quiet, a hush settling among the trees. Suddenly, there's a rustle, a glimpse of something big. Bigfoot. But as quickly as it appeared, it's gone, fading back into the inky darkness. And while your heart's pounding and adrenaline's coursing, your fingers fumble for your phone, managing only a blurry, dark snapshot. The figure, just a shadowy mystery, sketched in pixels. Before you can say Sasquatch, you're left with shaky knees and a less than convincing proof of your encounter. So, what's going on here? Could it be that Bigfoot is more intelligent than us, surpassing our heightened senses and advanced android tech? Or perhaps the mystery creature is just that. A pure mystery, woven together by hoaxes and half-remembered truths designed to whip up a sensational cocktail of fear and fascination. Here's a tasty tidbit. Many alleged videos and pictures of this extraordinary creature have indeed been debunked as hoaxes. Allow us to not forget the infamous Patterson-Gimlin film we mentioned earlier, shot in 1967, which still sparks fiery debates among Bigfoot believers and skeptics today. But hold on tight, because the plot is about to thicken with high-profile claims of well-executed hoaxes. With technology constantly advancing, Adobe After Effects wizards and prosthetic makeup experts have made it easier to fool the unsuspecting, adding yet another layer to our beastly riddle. But does this mean Bigfoot doesn't exist? Not necessarily. The absence of proof, after all, is not proof of absence. Bigfoot, like any good mystery, is shrouded in a cloak of questions. As we race towards new revelations with every passing moment, it remains nestled in our collective imagination. A beacon in the vast wilderness of the unknown. a place where many of us find a respite from the struggles of daily life. You know how we have amazing stories about pirates hunting for hidden treasure or superheroes with secret powers, right? Some people actually believe these theories to be true, while others think they're just spicy tales to ponder. Food for thought, I suppose. That's why now we're going to tell you about some of the most popular and definitely the most exciting conspiracy theories about old Bigfoot. First up, some believe that Bigfoot is actually a descendant of cavemen like Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal. Think about it. With those big, prominent brows and massive, hairy bodies, our mysterious creature may just be an ancient hominid living in the shadows of our modern world, smirking at our comparative feebleness. Alright, now, this is where things get really weird and sluggish. Some theories suggest that Bigfoot is actually a sloth. You heard me right. A long-lost member of the Megatherium, or giant ground sloth family. Bet you didn't see that one coming, did you? Neither did I. Boasting an uncanny resemblance to the creature of folklore, could Bigfoot be nothing more than our furry, slow-moving friend's prehistoric relative? I mean, your guess is as good as mine on that one. But here's a sobering thought. What if Bigfoot sightings are all elaborate hoaxes, deception, trickery, and Photoshop, the holy trinity of our digital age? Could it be that we are victims of an intricate web of bamboozlement as elusive as the creature itself? In an era where misinformation is the name of the game, it leaves you wondering, have we been deceived? One widespread conspiracy theory suggests that Bigfoot is, I don't know how else to put this, extraterrestrial. I'm not kidding. Speculation abounds that our friend Sasquatch, the Yeti, the skunk ape, is actually an alien being, hopping interdimensional portals, which would conveniently explain the creature's sudden appearances and disappearances. That puts a whole new twist on illegal aliens, doesn't it? I can get away with that joke because I'm Hispanic. Now, consider this. Are the whispers of Bigfoot captives true? Some claim that governments around the world have secret facilities where they've been hiding both living and dead Bigfoots. But if these behemoths are indeed under wraps, what's the government trying to learn from them? Revealing the truth would surely turn the world on its head. So I guess there's that. All right, now brace yourself. Some theorists go even a step further, speculating that Bigfoot is actually part of a secret government experiment. Think psychic warfare or genetic manipulation. Kind of far out, isn't it? For those who prefer their theories a little more scientific, and I do mean that in quotes, how about the idea that Bigfoot creatures are the result of genetic mutations or maybe even experiments gone awry? Altering genes is no stranger to us in the 21st century, and if Mother Nature or a sneaky scientist decided to throw one of her curveballs, bam! Bigfoot could have been born. And then there's the theory that Bigfoot is none other than... Okay, are you ready for this one? The idea is that Bigfoot is an evolutionary throwback to Homo habilis, or a descendant of Gigantopithecus, that supposedly survived extinction. It's a little bit of a stretch, but then again, they did find the coelacanth, so... But perhaps our collective fascination with Bigfoot is less about the creature itself and more about our human desire for mystery and wonder, a reflection of our primal fears and our innate curiosity, our longing for the thrill of the chase and the lure of the unknown. I mean, as it stands right now, most of our days, most of our lives they're kind of figured out. We have a car, we kind of know how it goes. We have a job, we kind of know how it works. We have a phone, we kind of can look anything up as it happens. But Bigfoot is like a big white whale, but with a lot of hair. And it also might kill you. As we unravel this fascinating tapestry of conspiracy theories, we unveil a multitude of enigmas that boggle our minds and challenge what we thought we knew. Among these stories, one character has left especially large footprints on our imagination, the being known as Bigfoot. You're probably seeing a pattern here. For years, tales of this tall and shadowy creature have echoed across the globe. Sightings have been claimed, footprints have been found, heated debates have ensued, and countless adventures have been embarked upon trying to solve the mystery of his existence. And we're talking all over the world. Maybe not Antarctica. I haven't found anything in Antarctica, but everywhere else, basically. They have a Bigfoot, they have a Yeti, they have a skunk ape, they have some giant hominid. But now our story takes an unexpected turn. As though walking through a hidden door in a secret garden, let's talk about how a DNA study proves Bigfoot never existed. This isn't just another story or a secondhand sighting. It's an exploration into the mysterious and intricate world of DNA, the tiny little building blocks of all life. Bigfoot, a giant creature known by countless names the world over, like Sasquatch, Skets, and the like, this elusive figure was the stuff of legends, captivating global intrigue with tales filled with hushed whispers and blurry footprints. Some even claim that he's 4,000 years old. But then arrived a team from the esteemed University of Oxford, armed not with cameras or traps, but with beakers, test tubes, and the powerhouse of genetic deciphering, DNA analysis. The year was 2012, and these audacious researchers did something utterly out of the box. They raised an open call for hair samples of the so-called Bigfoot. Hailing from museums or private collections, an assortment of 36 samples purported to belong to the mysterious Bigfoot were collected from around the globe. The United States, Russia, Indonesia, India, Bhutan, and Nepal. This geographical mix puzzled everyone, suggesting that either Bigfoot had quite the taste for globetrotting and definitely some Delta Sky Miles, or perhaps there was more than one anomalous primate. The suspense hung in the air like a dense fog. After all, this was the first investigation of its kind, Bigfoot being taken seriously by serious scientists. With their detective gears cranked to the max, the team conducted thorough DNA analyses of these samples, comparing their findings with known species of animals. The results that the scientific sleuths discovered were a medley of pure, wild surprise. Turns out that the collected samples had absolutely nothing to do with Bigfoot. Instead, they traced back to bears, wolves, raccoons, a porcupine, deer, sheep, a human being, and even a cow. Yeah, you heard me right. A mooing, milk-producing cow. The revelation sent waves of disbelief, shattering the grand illusion of the legendary creature. Although the findings suggested the non-existence of the enigmatic creature, the researcher Brian Sykes quipped, quote, "The fact none of these samples turned out to be Bigfoot doesn't mean the next one won't." The enduring world of Bigfoot conspiracy theories took this statement as a glimmer of hope, continuing their quest for the mythical creature. We've navigated through the fascinating world of conspiracy theories, the myths, the legends, the cryptids, and even treaded an unconventional path toward scientific studies attempting to debunk the legend of Bigfoot through DNA analysis. But don't you worry, the fun doesn't stop yet. We're going to bring things back to my home state of Ohio. Despite all the studies and scientific findings, the enthralling legend of Bigfoot remains all the more alive today. Yes, we are about to immerse ourselves in yet another captivating encounter. And once again, right here in the heartland of the United States, Ohio, the Buckeye State. One moonlit night, a young boy named David stood in front of a captivated audience and trembled as he described a massive, brownish-black furred creature he had seen in Ohio's Shawnee State Park during a family camping trip. An elderly woman followed, recounting the night her peaceful home unexpectedly shook as if a boulder smashed into her house. Not once, but twice. As more chilling tales emerged, it seemed that the shadows themselves whispered that Bigfoot was alive and lurking in the dark corners of Ohio forests. Now enter Matt Moneymaker, a renowned Bigfoot hunter and co-host of TV's Finding Bigfoot, and somebody I think lives up to his last name. Under his guidance, several hundred people convened at Pleasant Hill Lake, forming a community united by their common pursuit of the elusive beast. By nightfall, the forest bore an eerie aura as the attendees kept their eyes peeled and ears wide open, desperately seeking Bigfoot. Sitting quietly in anticipation, they watched with bated breath as a thermal drone scanned the woods searching for signs of life, a telltale heat signature or an unusual movement hidden within the foliage. Suddenly, Matt's attention was drawn to the giant screen as a hotspot materialized among the trees. Could it be Bigfoot, camouflaged amidst the foliage? The drone attempted a closer look, but the thick forest rendered it impossible to confirm the sighting. The air became heavy with suspense and anticipation as the search continued. Despite the mystery, one thing is abundantly clear. Ohio continues to be an ideal hotbed for those seeking Bigfoot. We journeyed deep into scientific studies, DNA analysis, and even Bigfoot festivals as our quest delivered us right to the heart of the captivating legend of Bigfoot within the scenic Ohio landscape. But, as with all extraordinary tales, the story doesn't end. As the mysteries surrounding Bigfoot continue to enthrall believers and skeptics alike, we turn our attention to the people who find solace and unity in the pursuit of the unknown. In an intriguing balance of nature and the seemingly unnatural, Hocking Hills, a stunning region, brazenly declares itself as Ohio's Bigfoot capital. And as I mentioned, it's also great for tourists. How better to celebrate this unique identity than an annual festival dedicated to the pursuit of the elusive Sasquatch, the Bigfoot Festival in Logan, Ohio. Under the watchful guidance of the keen-eyed Bea Mills, the Bigfoot Festival morphs from an echo of hushed tales gripped by the Ohio woods into an exuberant celebration that unites a community, stretching their desires beyond their backyards. Bea's vision of celebrating Bigfoot as the township's hairy hide-and-seek world champion strikes a chord with both enthusiasts and skeptics, driving them to relish the Appalachian landscape's beauty. Stretching across August 4th and 5th, the festival is a cornucopia of engaging activities. Folk music fills the air, creating a lively ambience, while the anticipated Sasquatch howling contest sends spine-tingling echoes through the crowd, along with some pretty good belly laughs. As darkness engulfs the landscape, festival goers embark on moonlit hikes, their hearts pounding with the hope of catching a glimpse of the fabled creature. Ohio's connection to Bigfoot and other cryptids cannot be overstated. The state ranks 4th nationally in alleged Bigfoot encounters, with over 300 reported sightings since the 1970s. Sparked by this alluring lore, the state has become a hub for Bigfoot-centric conferences, investigations, youth camps, and, of course, the annual festival. The Bigfoot Festival is as much about economic support as it is a celebration of curiosity. The increase in visitors to the area helps support local businesses. So for those ma-and-pa shops, crafters, and artisans, they can all get involved with Bigfoot. It's no minor gathering either. For its inaugural launch, a staggering 10,000 people visited, temporarily doubling Logan's population, with even higher attendance expected this very year. The festival serves not just to satisfy the curiosity of Bigfoot believers, but also as an avenue to boost local tourism and foster a stronger community connection. Yet, Ohio's tryst with urban legends extends even beyond Bigfoot. The Ohio River Valley nourishes tales of the Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and the Little Green Men in Kelly, Kentucky. The diverse natural features of the region, its extensive waterways, and mysterious woods spawn these captivating narratives, particularly for the Sasquatch, a legend entrenched in the hills for decades. Perhaps then, the Bigfoot Festival is not just about chasing after this otherworldly creature. It's also about the community joining, exploring, and embracing Ohio's gorgeous natural landscape. Everyone has just as good a shot to see a Sasquatch as the next person, so the festival remains a joyful, lighthearted celebration, inviting everyone to partake in the exhilarating mystery firsthand. Legend has it that Bigfoot possesses magical, almost supernatural abilities. They say that in the blink of an eye, Bigfoot can blend seamlessly into the forest, using its enchanted hair to camouflage itself, like some kind of a very furry ninja of the woods. Just imagine what it would be like to share a secret handshake with the elusive forest dweller. It would have to be an extremely secret handshake, that's for sure. As we follow the trail of Bigfoot's footprints, we uncover a surreal assortment of clues. Rumors swirl that Bigfoot has a penchant for leaving behind enchanting messages in its famous footprints, messages known to summon friendly woodland creatures. Keep your eyes peeled for these. Who knows, we might just be the lucky ones to decipher the mythical encrypted messages for the first time. Contrary to popular belief, there's no need for midnight hiking or eerie expeditions to try and spot Bigfoot. In actuality, the key to increasing your chances of a Bigfoot encounter lie in immersing yourself in nature and learning about the great outdoors. The Hocking Hills region offers the perfect canvas for this enriching experience with its picturesque landscapes and countless opportunities to explore. And no, they didn't pay me to say that, although maybe they should. Embark on an adventure to discover lesser trodden trails. I've definitely had a good time doing it. Places like Natural Rockbridge Trail, Wayne National Forest, Salt Fort Lake State Park, and Schallenberger State Nature Preserve. While exploring the breathtaking beauty of these pockets of wilderness, remember to pause, listen, and observe the rich flora and fauna that coexist within these forests. As you learn about your environment, you'll find yourself deeply engaged with the culture surrounding Bigfoot. Merging these passions for nature and Bigfoot's legend is essential because understanding nature, its behavior, and the landscape is one of the most effective ways to prepare for an encounter with this creature. And remember, folks, while on your Bigfoot escapade, always prioritize safety for both yourself and the ecosystem. Dangers abound in the form of precarious cliffs, and veering off the trails can have serious implications for the fragile wildlife in these areas. Also, if you get lost, you will starve and die. At least if you're as good as I am. Regardless of whether the tales we hear are rooted in fact or sprinkled with a little dose of fiction, there's no denying the power of these timeless Bigfoot stories. They're like sparks in the night, igniting our curiosity, fueling our evening campfire conversations, and giving life to the primal fear of the unknown that resides deep within us all. Who can truly say what mysteries lie hidden deep within the dense forests we so eagerly explore, or even within the vast expanse of our own hearts? The curious allure of Bigfoot isn't just about the creature itself, but also the breadcrumb trail of questions it leaves behind. Could such a creature even exist? If it does, what does it reveal about our world and its unknown wonders? And why are we so drawn to the shadows, the unexplained, and the mystique? Traditional wisdom would suggest we should be afraid, yet in our pursuit of Bigfoot, it's not just about encountering a legendary creature, it's also about the journey, the thrill of exploration, the joy of storytelling, and perhaps most importantly, the endeavor to understand the mysteries that both our world and we hold within ourselves. In a way, maybe the real Yeti was the friends we made along the way. I couldn't resist, I had to put that in there. As we explore and question, let us continue embracing the unknown. And remember, every murky path or unanswered question is an invitation to adventure. So here's to making the most out of enduring human curiosity. The one that looks at the starlit sky or into the shadow-dappled forest and asks, what if?
Chupacabra in America. Most cryptids have been in the public consciousness for countless generations, some starting out as cautionary tales to prevent children from wandering off at night, or warnings to dissuade hungry citizens from turning to cannibalism when food is scarce. Many of these legends appear to have no logical starting point or explanation, just sightings dating back as far as documentation has existed. Vampiric creatures like Abchanchu, the Bolivian shapeshifter, the Democratic Republic of Congo's half-human, half-lobster, the Mamba Mutu, or the Manananagal, with its bat-like wings from the Philippines, have storied histories. The cryptid presented for discussion today, the Chupacabra, is not one of these beasts of ancient folklore. While some claim that stories of the creature have been part of Latin American culture for as long as that culture has existed, there is no evidence to support that. In fact, we can point to specific dates and locations where the first sightings occurred and the legend began. It wasn't in some mysterious place in the reaches of the far-gone past. It was in a very real town less than 50 years ago. The Chupacabra grew up in the internet era. Encounters and images of the beast have been spread widely on news sites, message boards, and eventually social media. And there have certainly been a lot of sightings. The creature has appeared everywhere, from late-night deserted roadsides to midday romps through the golf courses of suburbia. Countless new images of the enigma are snapped by cell phones every year, prompting a frenzy of discussion over what remains unknown in our everyday environment. What can we glean about the Chupacabra from all this evidence? What has been done to understand the creature and its place in our ecosystem? The answers may give you faith in humanity, or make you question everything. In 1975, the town of Mocha in Puerto Rico was rocked by a series of strange livestock deaths. In February, 15 cows, 2 geese, 3 goats, and a pig were killed in a way that worried the town. All were found dead with strange perforations on their hides and had been drained completely of blood. Newspapers called the mysterious attacker El Vampiro de Mocha, which translates to the Mocha Vampire. This was only the first of many attacks attributed to El Vampiro Mocha. In March, farmer Cecilio Hernandez awoke to find 34 of his chickens had been killed during the night. At this point, at least 90 animals had been slain. These attacks seemed to defy explanation, and Mocha was left in a state of panic. Some believed they were dealing with a monster, possibly a large vampire bat or a strange and unknown bird. Resident Maria Acevedo claimed to have seen the bird of unknown origin pecking at her windows and rapping at the metal roof of her home. It then issued a chilling cry and flew off into the night. At the time, the prevailing theory, however, was that it was the work of a satanic cult. This fits perfectly with the general moral panic around Satanism and satanic cults, that was endemic to the United States at that time. The idea that an unknown animal may be responsible for these strange, untimely deaths slowly faded from public memory as the attacks tapered off. It wasn't until 1995, 20 years later, when 8 sheep were killed in a similar, mysterious fashion, that this fear resurfaced. They had, again, been completely drained of blood, each with 3 puncture wounds on their chests. The term Chupacabra, which translates literally to goat sucker, was coined relatively early on by Silvero Perez, a radio DJ in San Juan, while discussing the attacks on air. It was a perfectly fitting name for the beast, and one that would stand the test of time. He may have been inspired for the name by the small species of bird called Chupacabra, which is commonly known as the nightjar in English. Chupacabra also translates to goat sucker, just using the antiquated form of the verb to suck, chotar, instead of the now common chupar. Nightjars were known to suck on goats' teats for milk, not their blood, but the name works either way. Later that year, a reported 150 farm animals and pets were killed in the town of Canovanas. Eyewitness Madeline Tolentino believed she had seen the creature responsible. One afternoon, it paused briefly on the sidewalk outside of her home, and she was able to get a good look at it. She described it as 3 to 4 feet tall, a grayish-green, reptile-like creature with large black eyes, but no visible nose or ears. It stood upright, had 3-fingered hands and feet with claws, spines running down its back, and it hopped like a kangaroo. Quote, "I told my mother I saw the devil," Madeline told the Washington Post. At least 15 other residents of the town claimed to have seen the monster as well. Misael Negron, a local college student, described his encounter with the animal that killed and disemboweled his family's goat to the Washington Post. Quote, "I was looking off the balcony one night, and I saw it step out of a bright light in the backyard," he said. It was about 3 or 4 feet tall with skin like that of a dinosaur. It had bright red eyes the size of hen's eggs, long fangs, and multicolored spikes down its head and back. Canovanas was in the middle of a crisis. The mayor's office was flooded with phone calls from concerned citizens. Quote, "We're looking for it," Canovanas' mayor Jose Soto, who was up for re-election, explained to the Austin American-Statesman. Quote, "I haven't seen it yet, but I know people who saw it. It attacks so fast. Everything from horses to sheep. It sucks out the blood completely." Mayor Soto even organized and participated in a weekly hunt for the beast in the foothills of the Caribbean National Forest near town. The first search had over 200 volunteers readying their firearms to take down the creature. They even attempted to lure it out with a caged goat. Quote, "Whatever it is, it's highly intelligent. Today it is attacking animals, but tomorrow it may attack people," Soto warned. No evidence of the monster was ever found during these hunts, but Jose Soto did manage to win his campaign for re-election. In total, approximately 200 sightings of the Chupacabra were reported in Puerto Rico in just 1995 alone. Talk shows and fringe media covered it extensively. Puerto Rico's premier ufologist, Jorge Martin, wrote several articles about the events in his magazine, Evidencia OVNI. He feared that the cryptid was extraterrestrial in origin and had been drawn specifically to Puerto Rico by the Arecibo Observatory, which housed the largest radio radar telescope in the world at the time. Jorge also described an increase in UFO sightings in Puerto Rico during this period. This included one that hovered over the antenna for the Radio Prosur radio station in Barraquitas. Eyewitnesses said it was shaped like a disc with a row of black windows in the center and shone brightly in the darkness. At the moment of its appearance, the equipment in the station began to act erratically. This included the powering on of some devices that were no longer used and weren't even plugged in. Some of the sightings even corresponded with Chupacabra attacks in the towns of Canavanas, Cabo Rojo, Naranjito, and Ponce. A family in Barrio Hato observed a UFO shortly before a number of goats and a horse were found mutilated. Jorge also spoke with a veterinarian, Carlos Soto, who determined that the bites on the slaughtered animals were very deep and penetrated the brain, causing instant death. He postulated that this method of killing, done in a way that the animal would suffer the least, meant that the attacker had great intelligence and could not be the work of a simple wild animal. Many other theories about the Chupacabra's existence circulated during this time. This included everything from the attacks being caused by wild local animals to the work of an escaped genetically engineered mutant from a research facility, or even an alien pet left on Earth accidentally. News of the Chupacabra did not stay contained to Puerto Rico, and it wasn't long before similar animal deaths and sightings of the creature reached the mainland. Whether they were legitimate discoveries of a blood-sucking predator expanding its range, or panicked mistaken identity of common animals, areas of the southern United States and many countries in South and Central America were now in the fray. Sightings have persisted and expanded to this very day. In the United States, Spanish-speaking communities, who often consumed Puerto Rican news sources or had family or friends on the island, were the first to report sightings. The Puerto Rican tabloid El Vocero covered the creature extensively, and the Miami-based talk show Cristina devoted an entire episode to the monster, with guests including Mayor Soto and ufologist Jorge Martin. Both of these media outlets are often credited with stoking the panic that ensued. Quote, "I used to laugh every time someone mentioned the Chupacabras, but after doing the show and listening to many serious, credible people, I have to tell you, I don't think it's a normal animal at all," the host of Cristina Saraligui, explained to the Boston Globe. Florida, specifically Miami-Dade County, was one of the first states to experience the chaos of Chupacabra sightings. What happened in Miami during the following year is now referred to as the 1996 Chupacabra hysteria. In early 1996, 69 animals, including chickens, geese, goats, and ducks, owned by two neighboring properties in Sweetwater, were slaughtered in a similar fashion to those in Puerto Rico. While authorities were confident that a large dog had been the cause, the community was in a very real state of panic as other sightings poured in from the surrounding area. In an attempt to quell the fear, the Metro-Dade Police Department employed Alan Heron, a University of Miami professor of pathology, to perform a televised necropsy on a goat that had been killed in a Chupacabra attack. He was able to prove that the animal had been killed by a dog and was not, in fact, drained of blood. The public, however, was not swayed by this, and different media outlets were adding more fire to the flames. Local pop radio station Y100.7 even ran a contest offering $1,000 to anyone who could get a picture of the cryptid. Quote, "They were just totally not listening," Ron McGill, zoologist and assistant curator at the Metro-Dade Zoo, who had been involved in the Sweetwater case, told the St. Petersburg Times. It's mushroomed way out of proportion. I'm sitting here literally in shock. While the Chupacabra was terrorizing Miami, strange things were also happening in Texas. In the Rio Grande Valley, Sylvia Ibarra found her 6-year-old goat dead in her yard with puncture wounds on its neck. While a necropsy determined that the goat's demise was very likely caused by an infection from the puncture wounds which looked to be the result of a dog bite, fear of this monster had already been stoked across the valley. "I'm scared," said Sylvia's mother. "I have a lot of grandchildren around here. We've always had a lot of animals, and we never had this happen before." When asked about the Chupacabra, Sylvia said, "I think it's watching over us. It might happen again. We never know when it's going to come back." Later that year, reports of Chupacabra attacks on livestock and humans flooded Poway, California, a small town near the Mexican border. Witnesses reported a gargoyle-like creature with bat wings, large claws, and fangs. It was said to be nocturnal and very aggressive. The media went out of their way to cover the story, but Poway city officials appeared to completely discount the reported attacks. While the intense panic and press surrounding the Chupacabra dissipated after 1996, the reports didn't stop, and the locations in which they were reported expanded. A resident of Falan, California, who preferred to remain anonymous, relayed their encounters to Beyond the Boundaries UFO Research Organization. They had started to get concerned when the coyotes and rabbits they were used to seeing so frequently around their property virtually disappeared. One day after this realization, they were startled by an eruption of panicked squealing from their pig outside. Not seeing anything after taking a quick look out the window, they grabbed a sword, which they typically used for a hobby in doing reenactments, and went out to take a better look. As they caught sight of the pig, it was clear something very odd was occurring. A dark gray bipedal creature was trying to attack it. When the thing realized it had company, it stopped what it was doing and looked at them with its giant black, almond-shaped eyes. It had large claws and porcupine-like quills covering its back. It then, without much effort, tore apart the chain-link fence surrounding the pig pen. At this point, the witnesses' dogs bolted from the house and charged the creature. It ran, leaping the 3-foot fence around the property and disappearing into the vegetation. The dogs appeared to be too scared to chase it any further. This wasn't the only time this witness saw the cryptid around their property. One night, after they had given the pig some leftover beer from a party, it appeared again. It approached the pen, ready to attack, but then suddenly took off without hurting the animal. They theorized that it was deterred by the smell of alcohol and started giving the pig beer nightly to protect it. This appeared to work. The unknown animal also seemed to be afraid to cross salt lines. The witness put down rock salt one winter to melt some ice that had accumulated, and later found tracks of the creature around the property, but only outside of the salted areas. After this, they began to use rock salt to create a barrier around their property. The creature would come and stand outside the perimeter, but never crossed onto the property again. In 1999, Chris Pico was camping on his friend Ray's property in Texas. He'd been aware that Ray had been acting strange all evening. Ray eventually told his friends about the eerie discovery he'd made just slightly up the road. One evening, Ray stopped at the side of that very road to relieve himself on his way home. Off to his right, he noticed a dead deer. Then he experienced a disconcerting sensation, like he was being drawn to the deer. He felt like he needed to take a look. When he reached it, he realized it was not roadkill like he'd been expecting. No, it had been killed by a predator, he thought, as he discovered the 3 puncture wounds in its neck. But strangely, there was no blood or signs of a struggle, almost as if the deer had been killed effortlessly and in an instant. Chris and the others in the group didn't take their friend's story very seriously. It wasn't until later that night when another member of the group shook Chris awake, claiming he'd heard something, that they started to change their minds. At first, Chris assumed his friend was just trying to scare him and tried to go back to sleep. But they were suddenly hit with the intense odor of rotting flesh. The friends decided to leave the tent to investigate. The night air outside was impossibly silent, bereft of the cricket chirps and croaking frogs that they were used to. The air hung dead still. As they scanned the area for the source of the smell, a sudden screech rang through the camp. Then, from behind a rock, emerged a small, tailless, light green, monkey-like creature. It stared at them with its large eyes and bared its sharp teeth. But then, instead of attacking, simply ran off. Ray tried to search for it, but it had completely vanished. Shocked by what they had seen, the group decided to sleep inside, not even sticking around long enough to clean up their campsite. When they returned to the area to collect their belongings the next morning, the site was in a state of disarray. Their items had been scattered around, and the tent had been totally shredded. The experience was enough to prevent Chris and his friends from ever camping in the area again. One state where Chupacabra sightings have never been common is Louisiana. This is likely because another blood-sucking, livestock-murdering cryptid has taken up residence in their bayous, a creature known as the Grunch. The Grunch, also known as the Grunch Road Monster, is a 3 to 4 foot tall goat-like creature with glowing eyes and gray, scaly, reptilian skin. Like the Chupacabra, it is said to have spines or quills on its back and drains the blood of the animals it attacks. But this monster doesn't just kill livestock, it also attacks people. As the story goes, the Grunch will often leave an injured animal, usually a goat, on the side of the road and wait. When the eventual concerned passerby would stop to help the animal, the Grunch would attack, kidnapping, killing, and then drinking the blood of the unfortunate Good Samaritan. The legend of the Grunch appears to date back to at least the 1800s and has multiple origin stories. One of the most common tells of a group of individuals with dwarfism and albinism who, at the time, were shunned from society in Louisiana. Unable to interact and live with the rest of the city of New Orleans, they were forced to live at the end of an isolated, unpaved road at the edge of town called Grunch Road. Over generations of seclusion, the small group became inbred and eventually horribly disfigured and hostile. They had also developed a taste for blood. The group began to hunt anyone and anything that had the misfortune of stepping foot on Grunch Road. Another tale ties the creatures to the famous voodoo high priestess of New Orleans, Marie Laveau. It was said that when she castrated the so-called devil baby, who was likely just a child with a genetic skin disorder, to prevent it from ever reproducing, the baby's testicles became a male and female grunch. They then attacked Laveau, almost killing her, and fled along with the devil baby. All that being said, the aforementioned Grunch Road does not currently exist within the city limits of New Orleans. Some believe it was just renamed and can still be found in the Little Woods neighborhood, only now as Gannon Road. Regardless of its location, unlike the Chupacabra, there are very few eyewitness accounts of sightings of this creature. However, after Hurricane Katrina ravaged that area in 2005, there was an uptick in sightings. This was especially true in Harvey, Louisiana, where residents said they saw the Grunch chasing cats and knocking over trash cans. Sanitation workers in Harvey reported that their trucks had been chased by the creature. One woman even said she saw it eating her neighbor's dog. Many have theorized that the reason for these sightings was that the creature had been displaced from its natural habitat temporarily due to the flooding. It is also equally as possible, though, that injured animals, which may also have been displaced from their natural homes, were being misidentified. Strangely, besides second-hand tales of these accounts, no pictures or news stories of the encounters exist from that time. Considering the abundance of highly public Chupacabra sightings, this makes the Grunch's existence seem suspect. It's also possible, given the creature's penchant for kidnapping and killing, that most people who encounter a Grunch do not live to tell the tale. In the early 2000s, the Chupacabra went through something of a makeover. Witnesses no longer reported seeing a gray, alien reptile creature with a spiny back, but something more akin to a hairless canine with a very pronounced spine, with large teeth and claws. Its modus operandi, however, remained the same: killing livestock and sucking them dry of blood. In 2006, a strange creature was hit by a car while chasing a cat across Route 4 in Turner, Maine. Local residents were puzzled by its appearance. It didn't look like any animal they were familiar with. Quote, "It was charcoal gray, weighed between 40 and 50 pounds, and had a bushy tail, a short snout, short ears, and curled fangs hanging over its lips," recounted Mike O'Donnell of Turner, Maine, to the Sun-Journal of Lewiston. Quote, "This is something I've never seen before. It's an evil-looking thing." Michelle O'Donnell, who is married to Mike, took a few pictures of the dead animal and claimed to have seen it in her backyard a week prior. Quote, "It was evil-looking, and it had a horrible stench I will never forget. We locked eyes for a few seconds, and then it took off. I've lived in Maine my whole life, and I've never seen anything like it," she explained. Michelle believed it was a hybrid mutant of something. Since 1991, predating the first wave of publicized Chupacabra sightings, the communities within Androscoggin County, Maine, have been terrorized by an unknown animal, with many reporting strange cries and mysterious eye shine emanating from the surrounding woods. The creature had also been blamed for the death of a Rottweiler and the mauling of a Doberman Pinscher. Quote, "We've been hearing stories about this thing for years, about this thing that's been attacking, shredding, and eating other animals. This is something that's not supposed to be out there," said Mike O'Donnell. Many wondered if what they'd found on the roadside was that very monster, and if it could be a Chupacabra. "That's no dog," said local Kenny Buck. He claimed his cat was what the unknown creature was chasing when it was struck. The cat was also found dead along Route 4. Local animal control and wildlife officials, however, seemed markedly unfazed. The O'Donnells contacted the Maine game warden, but were told it was probably a coyote and that they should do their own research online because the game warden would not come out to inspect it. Michelle did attempt to conduct her own research, but she was not able to find an animal that resembled what they had found anywhere on the internet. Quote, "It certainly doesn't look like a chow or any kind of domesticated dog that I've seen," said cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman after looking at the photos. "It may be a hybrid between a dog and a wolf." When several days later, reporter Mark Laflamme arrived to investigate for an article in the Sun Journal, the creature had decayed beyond recognition. "By the time I got there, it was a soupy mess," he recounted. However, the Sun Journal, desperate to get to the bottom of just what this monster was, sent its paw to a laboratory for DNA analysis, which, in this case, confirmed that it was just a misunderstood dog, not a monster. This, of course, doesn't explain what had been terrorizing Androscoggin County for 15 years, so it's possible the creature really causing the issues is still out there. Maine, of course, isn't a place that's typically thought of when it comes to the Chupacabra, but sightings have been less contained to the southern portion of the United States than one might think. One morning in the summer of 2008, Michigander Cora saw something she'd never seen before on North Holly Road. It was 4:41 a.m. and she was driving home to Holly, Michigan, after dropping off a coworker from an art center in Davis. She was driving attentively and was wide awake. She also had her high beams on to make it easier to spot any deer that might be wandering into the road in the pre-dawn hours. It was silent, just Cora and her car, alone, on the road. As she approached Grange Hall Road, she spotted something large digging through a trash can on the right side of the street. She slowed down to get a better look. "What is it?" was her very first thought on approach, she explained to the National UFO Reporting Center. It was much bigger than the average sort of animal she was used to seeing going through trash. Cora began to mentally go through every animal she could think of to find one that made sense with what she was seeing. It had rounded ears like a mouse and a long rat-like tail, but it was far too big to be either. Its body reminded her of a kangaroo, but it was gray, not brown, and it had a head similar to that of a canine, but more pointed and triangular at the end. It stood upright and was about 3 feet tall. Perhaps most unsettling was that instead of paws, the creature appeared to hold the trash with slender, almost human hands. "I don't know what I'm looking at," she thought. "Can't be a Chupacabra, could it? In Michigan?" Then it turned to look at her with its large, round, glowing red eyes. The creature looked a little surprised that it had been seen, almost as if it didn't know it could be seen. They stared at each other for 3 to 4 seconds in silence. The animal then dropped the trash it had been holding, got on all fours, and hopped off towards the woods like a rabbit, ending their encounter. This wasn't her only sighting of this supposed Chupacabra. Cora saw it again several days later while traveling home from a friend's house around 4 a.m. She was driving on Interstate 75 near the Holly, Michigan exit when she saw it hopping in the ditch along the highway. This time she wasn't able to slow down or get a good look at the animal's body, but she was sure it was the same thing she'd seen on North Holly Road. After doing some research, Cora was convinced she'd seen a Chupacabra. She contacted the National UFO Reporting Center, and the organization then filed a report with the Holly Police Department. The police, however, seemed not to take the sightings seriously. Another encounter with the cryptid took place in Oklahoma. In the summer of 2018, Mike and Lisa Curtis of Deer Creek were alarmed to see that their turkey and chickens had been killed in their backyard. They checked their game camera, which revealed a large dog-like animal roaming their yard and then attacking 4 of their chickens and eating their turkey, Lorena. Quote, "When we saw this animal, we all didn't know what to say because it wasn't a coyote that I'd ever seen," Mike told Oklahoma News 4. Soon after watching the video, Mike found that there had been another sighting of a similar-looking animal in the same area in 2013. It had been photographed by Craig Martin when he spotted it in a field. There had been talk of the animal being a Chupacabra and that the cryptid might be expanding its range north. Quote, "We watched the video, read the article, and we're like, wow, this thing looks just like what we have on video. The guy had it on picture. Now we have it on video," said Mike. While Mike and Lisa believed what they had seen to be a Chupacabra, the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife maintained that the images and video were likely that of a sickly coyote. But since the animal was never examined, its true origin remains unknown. One of the most recent and perplexing sightings comes from Texas. In May of 2022, staff at the Amarillo Zoo in Amarillo, Texas, noticed a strange figure on their security camera. At 1:25 a.m., standing upright on 2 legs in a recreation area separated from the zoo by a tall chain-link fence, was something furry and as tall as a person, but with the features of a coyote or a fox. The black and white, slightly blurry image lacked the definition needed to make a solid analysis, but it was clearly eerie. In early June, the city of Amarillo released the picture along with a press release asking for the public's help to identify it. Was it a person with a strange hat who likes to walk at night? A large coyote on its hind legs? A Chupacabra? It is a mystery for Amarillo to help solve, the city said in their statement. They made sure to clarify that while this was weird, the creature didn't get into the zoo, harm any animals, or commit any crimes. They were simply interested in finding out what it was. Quote, "For now, the strange visitor is a UAO, unidentified Amarillo object. However, perhaps Amarillo has a better explanation. In the spirit of fun, if not curiosity, the city of Amarillo is letting the public offer ideas on the identity of the UAO," they said. The public had plenty of ideas. Some even believed it was some sort of marketing hoax to encourage tourism in the city. Seattle-based wireless camera company Wise went as far as to offer to donate 80 cameras to help in the search. But even with the entire city involved, the creature was never identified or seen again. At first glance, one of the most perplexing things that these and many other Chupacabra sightings have in common is the lack of urgency expressed by the police and the wildlife departments at the time they occurred. While the response to the unidentified armadillo object does seem to buck this trend, the city's statement to the public conveyed a sense of playfulness that indicated that there was little fear behind the sighting. The question then should be, what could possibly cause the authorities to shrug off all these abnormal cases of a potentially dangerous monster? There are really only two answers. Either we are standing at the precipice of a massive conspiracy to cover up or hide the existence of a dangerous cryptid, or these organizations have reason not to take these eyewitness accounts seriously. While the former is impossible to prove or disprove, we do have substantial evidence to support the latter. One of the most publicized and dissected Chupacabra cases comes from Texas. In 2007, Phyllis Canyon of Guerrero lost 28 chickens to attacks by an unknown animal. Each chicken had been slashed at its throat and appeared to be sucked dry of blood. Shortly after these incidents, she discovered the carcass of a strange animal next to the road, near her ranch. While it resembled a canine, it was completely bald, its blue-tinted skin resembling the hide of an elephant more than a coyote's flesh. It also had two strange pouches of skin on either side of its tail, and shockingly blue eyes. She noted that unlike coyotes and wolves, it only had 3 toes on its front feet instead of 4, and only 4 nipples instead of the usual 8 to 10. Phyllis was convinced she'd found something extraordinary, possibly a Chupacabra. She decided to call it the Blue Dog because of its skin color, and eventually had it taxidermied to display in her home. With the help of KENS5 News, Phyllis was able to send a DNA sample to Texas State University for evaluation. The results were not what she was expecting. Quote, "The DNA sequence is a virtually identical match to DNA from the coyote, or Canis latrans." Mike Forstner of the biology department at Texas State explained to KENS5, quote, "This is probably not the answer a lot of folks thought might be the outcome. I, myself, really thought it was a domestic dog, but the Cuero Chupacabra is a Texas coyote." But Phyllis didn't have just one DNA test done, but many, because she wasn't satisfied with the results. These later tests suggested the Blue Dog was actually a Mexican wolf and coyote hybrid, but Phyllis maintained that the creature simply had too many unique features to be related to these very real canines. She also stipulated the reason for its hairlessness was that the species lived underground, despite mange being a much more likely cause. Quote, "We had some bad floods, and that may have forced them above ground," said Phyllis. Other blue dog sightings have occurred in eastern Texas and southern Oklahoma, but no others have been caught or studied. Since we know from the DNA evidence that wolves and coyotes were possibly breeding in the area, other similar-looking animals existing would seem to make sense. Phyllis hoped to catch another so she could do further DNA testing on the species, but it seems likely that if she did, the results would not yield anything that would be considered shocking. In the late 2000s, Texas was a hotbed for Chupacabra sightings. In 2009, just 2 years after the Blue Dog, Lynn Butler, a student of the Blanco Taxidermy School in Blanco, brought a strange animal to his teacher, Jerry Ayer, to look at. The animal was thought to be responsible for killing his cousin's chickens. In an attempt to stop the attacker, his cousin had left poison in the barn, and upon returning the next day, found it dead. The hairless, gray, leathery-skinned creature wasn't something they could identify, so Lynn hoped his teacher could shed some light on just what it was. But Jerry wasn't sure what to make out of what was in front of him. Quote, "To be honest, I don't know what it is. I'd probably say it's a freak of nature coyote or a hybrid breed with a genetic mutation," he told the LA Times. Unsurprisingly, Jerry decided to taxidermy the animal, hoping a museum might have interest in it. Quote, "It's definitely something I don't want to throw away. I think it will be an interesting mount and a tremendous conversation piece," he explained to KSTAT News. As he had hoped, Jerry was able to sell the specimen for an undisclosed amount to John Adolphi for his museum in Phoenix, New York. As a believer in creationism, Adolphi filled the Lost World Museum with oddities that he'd collected in an attempt to disprove evolution. The Blanco Texas Chupacabra, as John called it, was displayed along with other strange creatures, including a cyclops cat. He hoped to show just how much there is in the world that science was still unable to explain. Unfortunately for him, science was actually able to explain the Blanco Texas Chupacabra. In 2017, with access to a DNA sample, researchers at UC Davis concluded that the animal was, again, a Mexican wolf and coyote hybrid that may or may not have had mange. By now, you may see a pattern forming, but it seems the public did not. One December afternoon in 2010, a strange animal emerged from the woods into the front yard of Mark Cothran's property in Lebanon Junction, Kentucky. It was the size of a cat, with large ears, a long tail, and whiskers, but shockingly, completely bald. Suffice it to say, it didn't look like anything he'd ever seen before. Quote, "I was like, every animal has hair, especially this time of year," he told Wave 3 News. "What puzzled me is how something like that could survive through a winter with no hair." Worried that the animal could be dangerous, Mark shot and killed it. When he posted photos he'd taken of it on the internet, many commenters thought he might have found a Chupacabra. Quote, "Everybody is leaning kind of toward that. It's the Chupacabra," he laughed. "People have come up to me saying, 'That's what the thing is, 'cause I pulled it up on the internet.'" Wanting to get to the bottom of what the animal actually was, Mark contacted the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources and agreed to deliver it to them for analysis. Based on its feet, skull, and dental formation, they were able to confirm that it was actually a raccoon. The raccoon didn't appear to have any diseases that could explain why it was hairless, so the biologist that examined it concluded that this feature was likely a genetic abnormality. Rounding out the disproven sightings is what occurred in South Carolina in 2017. Doug Stewart was playing a round of golf at Santee Cooper Country Club in Santee, South Carolina, when he saw a strange gray creature. He took a picture and immediately posted it to Facebook. Quote, "Okay, playing golf in Santee, South Carolina. Can somebody please tell me what the flock this is? Hashtag, that ain't no dog." He begged his friends in his post. The picture went viral, and many commenters conjectured that he may have seen a Chupacabra. However, fur-bearer project manager for the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, Jay Butfalowski, immediately identified it as a canine with mange. Without examining it in person, he wasn't sure which, but possibly a coyote or fox. Quote, "Either way, it has got mange," he told ABC4. Countless Chupacabra sightings follow this pattern. An eyewitness either takes a picture or kills a beast they think is the Chupacabra, and it turns out to be an animal common in the area, usually a dog or coyote that is hairless. It can be difficult to recognize an animal without its typical coat, and even more so with an animal that usually has such fluffy, recognizable fur, like a raccoon or even a coyote. While the confusion these naked animals cause is understandable, what is causing so many hairless wild animals to appear in such populated areas? While some animals, like the raccoon in Kentucky, are simply genetic anomalies, most of the Chupacabra sightings can and have been attributed to animals with a skin condition. More specifically, as we've learned with many of these sightings, mange. There are two types of mange that could cause the skin issues seen in many of these animals: demodectic mange and sarcoptic mange. Both have very similar symptoms, and analysis of skin scrapings and the mites under a microscope or a blood test is needed to determine the type. Mange is very curable when treated with topical or oral medications. Demodectic mange, sometimes called red mange or demodex, is caused by the demodex mite. These parasitic mites live in the hair follicles of most animals. They usually don't cause any harm in healthy animals, but when the immune system is compromised, these mites can spread across the skin rapidly and start to cause problems. This type of mange is generally seen in young animals with underdeveloped immune systems, elderly animals with failing immune systems, and those who are sick or suffering from malnutrition. Demodectic mites can spread from mother to child in the first few days of life, but animals with demodectic mange are not contagious. Though demodectic mange is the most common type seen in dogs, it's sarcoptic mange that's usually mentioned in Chupacabra cases. Also known as canine scabies, sarcoptic mange is caused by Sarcoptes scabii mites, which burrow tunnels under the animal's outer layer of skin. The mites use their digestive enzymes to break down and consume skin tissue, and then the adult female mites lay eggs in the tunnels they've created. This digging and an allergic reaction to the mite's saliva and feces cause skin irritation that leads to intense itching. The affected animal is likely to lick and scratch at infested areas, sometimes to the point of self-mutilation. Infestations usually start in areas with thinner skin, such as the head or ears, and then spread. In addition, the areas of affected skin develop crusty pimples and elevated lesions that then harden and thicken. Widespread hair loss is also associated with ongoing mange. This sounds strikingly similar to the description of the Texas blue dog's skin, with its dry, cracked, elephant hide-like appearance, and biologists in that case agree. Occasionally, in mange cases, the animal will also develop secondary bacterial skin infections due to open lesions caused by scratching. These infections can produce a foul odor and would also explain the smell sometimes associated with the Chupacabra. Coyotes can live for up to 2 years with mange before they either succumb to starvation or die of a secondary infection. The only real threat they pose during that time is spreading sarcoptic mange, which is highly contagious to other canines. It can spread through direct contact or contaminated environments. Sarcoptic mange can even temporarily infect humans, causing intense itching, though not for very long, as this particular version of Sarcoptes scabii mite can't complete its life cycle outside of canines. Animals with mange may be too sick to hunt as they regularly would, and instead go for easier prey, even if it means coming into contact with people. Quote, because these animals are greatly weakened, they're going to have a hard time hunting, so they may be forced into attacking livestock because it's easier than running down a rabbit or a deer, University of Michigan biologist Barry O'Connor explained to mangabay.com. According to the Wildlife Rescue, Wildlife Care of Southern California, an organization that has been treating wild coyotes and bobcats for mange since 2013, coyotes with mange are active during the day to avoid competition. In Southern California, these dehydrated and hungry animals often stand on street corners or in the middle of the street, waiting for people to feed them when they can no longer hunt for themselves. Hence, we find ourselves with a case of mistaken identity of these disconcerting-looking diseased coyotes and other canines. But what of their strange vampirized victims? If you believe mange doesn't cause animals to suck livestock dry of blood, well, you would be correct. However, to this point in time, no animal that has been necropsied after a Chupacabra attack was found to have actually been drained of blood. This misconception from eyewitnesses could be due to the lack of blood found at the bite wounds. While some have argued that it doesn't make sense for a predator like a coyote to kill an animal and then not eat it, this is also not true. According to the Texas Natural Resources Server, a natural resource management database, both coyotes and dogs, attacks from which can appear very similar, do sometimes kill animals and then, either due to inexperience or injuries, end up not consuming them. Dogs in particular are known to cause severe injuries to smaller animals without killing them, and are unlikely to actually eat these animals. That being said, a large number of these attacked animals die later due to infections, blood loss, or shock. Whether or not you believe the scientific community's take on the version of the Chupacabra endemic to the United States since the early 2000s, it does not seem to explain the original and early sightings of a reptilian, spike-covered monster. Benjamin Radford, managing editor of the Skeptical Inquirer and author of Tracking the Chupacabra, the Vampire Beast in Fact, Fiction, and Folklore, believes the original Chupacabra description is little more than fiction. After combing through all of the reports of Chupacabra sightings in Puerto Rico, he realized that they all described the monster in the same way Madeline Tolentino had in her 1995 encounter. Her account, along with a sketch of the creature, was published in the local newspaper. As hers was the first documented sighting of the Chupacabra, this striking consistency could lead one to believe that the reports were all of something very real and previously unknown. But Benjamin noticed something strange. Madeline's description of a gray, bipedal creature with spines on its back had an uncanny resemblance to the alien-human hybrid Syl from the hit 1995 science fiction film, Species. Benjamin even went as far as to interview Madeline about her experience. He asked her if she'd seen the film, and she admitted that she'd seen it a few weeks before her encounter. She'd even told an interviewer in 1997 that the resemblance between the Chupacabra and Syl was impressive. Quote, "You can make a direct connection between the film hitting theaters, her seeing the creature in the film, seeing it in the street, making the report, and entering the public conscious," he said in an article for Live Science. But if people weren't seeing an alien-like creature, what were they seeing? Biologist Barry O'Connor has postulated that what was originally seen in Puerto Rico was a monkey with mange, but there's far from a consensus. Interestingly enough, the Puerto Rican authorities had their own theories about the Chupacabra. Less sensational than those expressed by the mayor of Canavanas, they appear to have been discarded by the public and forgotten almost entirely nearly 30 years later. Hector Garcia of Puerto Rico's Department of Agriculture Veterinary Services thought there was a good possibility that the animals slaughtered were victims of dog attacks. He said there was nothing unusual about the cases, and the animals which his team necropsied also were not drained of blood, as had been claimed. Without pictures or DNA evidence, we may never know for certain what spurred the original cases, but it's evident that they are not related to what became of the Chupacabra after. How did the description of this blood-sucking monster change so radically? What is abundantly clear from the story of the Chupacabra is that witnesses, in general, are not as good at identifying wildlife as they believe themselves to be. It's important to remember that the original wave of Chupacabra sightings occurred before the omnipresence of social media. It's likely that, especially during the earlier years of the Chupacabra sightings, those outside of Puerto Rico had little idea of the description of the creature, especially those who didn't speak Spanish. So the public in the United States mainland was aware of some monster attacking livestock in Puerto Rico, followed quickly by certain communities in Florida and Texas, but not much more than that. It was just known as a mysterious, unidentified creature. Because of this, many who saw animals that couldn't be immediately identified as something common to the normal landscape began to use the term Chupacabra to describe them. Since the animal they've seen also defies identification, calling it the name of something else they couldn't make sense of seemed like a safe bet. It's as if the Chupacabra just became the catch-all term for all unidentified four-legged animals instead of a cryptid with a set of very specific traits. Add to this that most of the animals causing the confusion and livestock attacks were canines with mange. By the time photos were being highly shared and publicized, the Chupacabra had completely morphed into an emaciated, hairless dog. The proof of what does exist based on very real evidence collected should give us pause when encountering an animal that we're unfamiliar with. It's important to suss out what is dangerous and what is something that actually needs our help before we act. But can we say without a shadow of a doubt that every sighting of the Chupacabra has been a misidentified coyote with mange or some other disfigured and suffering animal? Of course not. Every year previously unknown species are discovered, so why not the Chupacabra? As with any creature in the realm of cryptozoology, there is no real way to prove it does not exist. As an alien, an escaped experiment in genetic modification, or even a very real and yet to be discovered animal, the Chupacabra could be out there. It may be waiting in the vast reaches of space or the dark, untamed wilderness for a time when we all get a little too comfortable, so it can attack once again. Indrid Cold. On a chilly November night, as the air grows crisp and the line between reality and the supernatural begins to blur, the intriguing tale of Indrid Cold creeps out from the dark corners of West Virginia. Known to many as the Grinning Man, Indrid Cold isn't just a creature of the night. He's a haunting figure that has captivated the minds of conspiracy theorists and ghost story lovers for decades. As you imagine him, picture a shadow that slips silently among the whispering trees, a ghostly presence with a smile too wide to be comforting, stretching eerily from ear to ear. This mysterious character doesn't just wander through the woods, he wanders through the edge of our imaginations. becoming a favorite spooky story for those who love a good chill. Indrid Cold, with his unnerving grin, stands at the crossroads of eerie and intriguing, sparking tales from blasphemous to bizarre, creating the image of a figure who may be just as playful as he is terrifying. Seen by some as a mysterious visitor from another realm or a mischievous specter, his tail pokes at our curiosity and tugs. The bizarre tale begins on a crisp 1966 evening that seemed like any other for Woodrow Derenberger, a humble sewing machine salesman from Mineral Wells, West Virginia. His drive home was interrupted in the most extraordinary way possible, turning an ordinary journey into a pivotal moment that would forever echo in the annals of paranormal lore. As Woodrow drove along the quiet, winding roads, a bizarre vehicle, unlike any typical automobile, and more akin to a kerosene lamp chimney, descended from the darkness and landed smoothly right in front of his truck, cutting off his path. From this strange lantern-shaped craft emerged a figure, a man, though calling him that felt almost inadequate given the oddity of his presence. This individual was outwardly ordinary, yet his demeanor was anything but. He introduced himself as Indrid Cold, but it wasn't just his name that caught Woodrow off guard. It was his mode of communication. Indrid Cold didn't speak. He transmitted his thoughts directly into Woodrow's mind through telepathy, a method as disconcerting as it is astounding. However, what made Indrid Cold an unforgettable figure was his eerie, unwavering grin. A smile so wide and unchanging it seemed to split his face. Frozen in a perpetual state of cheer, this grin never faltered during their interaction, adding a creepy layer to this unnerving encounter. The smile, his calm demeanor, and the surreal context of their meeting painted a portrait of a being as terrifying as he was mesmerizing. This bizarre meeting on a lonely West Virginia road would haunt Woodrow Derenberger for years, marking the beginning of a series of strange events linked to the mysterious figure only known as Indrid Cold. As Woodrow stared into the grinning face of this enigmatic visitor, a mixture of fascination and unease gripped him. Little did he know, this encounter was just the prelude to a story that would weave itself into the fabric of local folklore, challenging all who heard it to question the boundaries of what they saw as reality. In the following days and weeks, Woodrow revisited this encounter, pondering every detail. Each recollection brought back the unnerving sensation of Cold's telepathic voice echoing in his head, which promised peace yet hinted at mysteries far beyond human understanding. This encounter wasn't just a meeting, it was an invitation into the unknown, leaving Woodrow and those who would later hear this story to wonder, who is Indrid Cold? What is his purpose? And from where does he truly come? The curious introduction of Indrid Cold to Woodrow Derenberger was merely the tip of an enigmatic iceberg. On that fateful night, Cold, with a grin that seemed both comforting and eerie, managed to assure Derenberger that he meant no harm and wished only happiness. Yet the nature of his questions, deep, probing inquiries into Derenberger's fears and personal life, cast a long shadow of doubt over his benign declarations. This peculiar conversation filled with more cryptic puzzles than clear answers, left Derenberger deeply unsettled, pondering the true intentions behind Cold's friendly facade. As word of this otherworldly encounter spread, it ignited a media frenzy that would thrust Woodrow Derenberger into the relentless spotlight of public curiosity and skepticism. Local newspapers and television stations clamored to cover the story of the grinning man from another dimension, turning Derenberger's life upside down. This sudden surge of attention brought an uncomfortable mix of intrigue and disruption to his life, transforming his once peaceful existence into a spectacle that attracted both believers and skeptics alike. The ramifications of his encounter with Indrid Cold extended far beyond fleeting media attention. Derenberger found himself the subject of both fascination as well as ridicule, his every word dissected by those eager to uncover the truth about the mysterious visitor. This scrutiny invaded his privacy and strained his relationships, affecting his family and close friends, who were unprepared for their ordinary lives to be caught in the whirlwind of a paranormal mystery. As the initial excitement waned, the deeper impacts of this encounter began to surface. Derenberger was left to grapple with the ongoing effects of his experience. It included a mix of interest from the paranormal community and isolation caused by mainstream skepticism. While fascinating to some, his story brought a heavy burden, demonstrating how a single inexplicable moment could alter one's life in profound and lasting ways. Through it all, the mystery of Indrid Cold deepened, bringing Derenberger's saga into the world of modern folklore. It is an eerie narrative that continues to raise so many questions, even today. This bizarre encounter didn't just capture local interest, it catapulted Indrid Cold into the realm of cultural mythology, immortalized in John Keel's chilling book, The Mothman Prophecies. Cold became intrinsically linked to the Mothman, another enigmatic figure said to haunt the eerie landscapes of West Virginia. This association brought Cole's story into a broader realm of supernatural legends, blending reality with rich imaginative lore to thrill and unsettle the public. Indrid Cold's haunting image, marked by his unnerving, ceaseless grin, became a fixture in the paranormal media world. His character inspired various adaptations and appearances, ranging from the sinister to the intriguingly bizarre. In films, he was often depicted as a mysterious harbinger of doom, his presence on screen accompanied by a palpable tension and an air of impending unease. Podcasts have spun tales where his voice, though never heard, sends shivers down the spines of listeners, invoking a sense of an unseen, omnipresent threat. Video games have embraced him as a character as well, shrouded in mystery, often sending players on quests to uncover his origins or escape his inexplicable wrath. In the world of comic books, Indrid Cold takes on a slightly different visage, sometimes portrayed as a mischievous spirit with dark, underlying motives. He engages readers with his cryptic puzzles and strange, playful antics. Each medium adds a layer to Indrid Cold's persona, enriching his mythology, while staying true to the core elements of horror and suspense that make his story so captivating. These portrayals ensure that Indrid Cold remains a footnote in the annals of paranormal encounters and a living part of modern folklore, continually evolving with each new interpretation. His legacy is not just in the scare he induces, but in the curiosity he inspires, compelling audiences to wonder, debate, and delve deeper into the shadows of the unknown, where figures like Cold reside. Woodrow Derenberger's life was dramatically transformed after his encounter with Indrid Cold. The ongoing visits he reported, not just by Cold but allegedly witnessed by his family, added much distress to their daily lives. The local community's response to Derenberger's claims were mixed, to say the least, creating a social rift. Some neighbors were drawn to his story, eager for details and possibly an encounter of their own, while others dismissed him, leading to a growing sense of being alone. Derenberger's tale, fascinating to some and a mere fantasy to others, became a spectacle that disrupted his personal and professional life. He was under a microscope, having every word analyzed and every action often scrutinized. This relentless pressure strained his relationships and impacted his career, making it difficult to maintain an everyday life. As the years passed, the psychological toll became evident. Derenberger's continuous claims of contact with Indrid Cold and other extraterrestrial beings began to strain his credibility and his mental health. The community's reactions turned even more skeptical, and Derenberger found himself the subject of ridicule and social ostracism. His story, once a curious tale of an otherworldly encounter, morphed into a cautionary fable about the dangers of too closely engaging with the inexplicable mysteries of the universe. Ultimately, Derenberger's experiences are a profound example of how encounters with the unknown can echo far beyond the initial moment of contact. They illustrate the deep psychological and social consequences of stepping into the limelight with a story that challenges the boundaries of belief and understanding. As thrilling as tales of the supernatural can be, Derenberger's life reminds us of the real-world repercussions that can arise when the fantastic enters one's reality. As the tale of Indrid Cold spread far and wide, it sparked a whirlwind of theories and speculations, each attempting to unravel the mystery of this strange and enigmatic figure. Was he an extraterrestrial visitor with messages for humanity, a secretive government experiment gone awry, or simply the creation of Woodrow Derenberger's overtaxed mind? The debate has become very complex, and it continues to captivate and perplex enthusiasts as well as skeptics alike. Critics like Brian Dunning have posited that the intense public and media scrutiny following Derenberger's initial encounter could have contributed to psychological strain, potentially leading to delusional disorders. This perspective suggests that the stress of sudden fame and the constant demand for more information might have pushed Derenberger into a deeper psychological crisis, where the lines between reality and imagination truly became blurred. On the other side of the spectrum, UFO enthusiasts and paranormal researchers have delved into the possibility that Indrid Cold was indeed an alien being. This theory is bolstered by accounts of Cold's unearthly communication methods and otherworldly demeanor, which seem to fit well within the narrative of an extraterrestrial intervention. Another intriguing angle explores the possibility that this was all related to the Cold War, part of some covert government operation, perhaps an experiment in psychological warfare or advanced surveillance technology. This theory is fueled by historical context of the 1960s, a time rife with Cold War paranoia, as well as secret government projects. Each theory offers a different lens through which to view the Indrid Cold saga. From the plausible to the fantastic, this blend of eerie uncertainty and playful speculation keeps the story alive. What is it about these bizarre and strange stories that so many would assume are simply not true, that keeps us wondering, keeps us asking questions, has us doing podcasts about them. Why do we crave the strange and unusual, whether it's to support it or scrutinize it? In particular, Indrid Cold invites us to ponder, to fear, and perhaps to smile, albeit not as unnervingly as he does. The Wendigo Curse. In the vast, snow-covered wilderness of North America, a dark and haunting legend took shape among the Algonquian-speaking peoples. The Wendigo, a creature born from greed and insatiable hunger, served as both a warning and a reflection of humanity's darkest impulses. With its emaciated frame and ravenous appetite, the Wendigo was said to consume not only flesh, but the very essence of balance and harmony, leaving destruction in its wake. But the Wendigo is more than just a monstrous figure of folklore. Over time, it is transformed into a powerful metaphor, representing individuals, ideology, and forces corrupted by unrestrained greed and selfishness. Its shadow looms large in stories of colonialism, environmental degradation, and even the exploitation of communities for personal gain. From traditional indigenous tales to modern interpretations in literature, film, and gaming, the Wendigo continues to captivate and terrify. Its symbolic resonance persists, a chilling reminder of what can happen when humanity's desires grow unchecked. The Wendigo's story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, asking the question, where does the line between survival and greed blur? And what happens when that line is crossed? The word Wendigo has its roots in Algonquin languages and translates to terms such as evil spirit or solely for self. This term is significant across several Native American languages, including Ojibwe, Cree, and Salto. The Wendigo is a supernatural being central to the spiritual traditions of Algonquin-speaking First Nations in North America. Described as a powerful and malevolent creature, the Wendigo is infamous for its unquenchable desire to kill and devour human beings. Legends suggest that humans can transform into Wendigos, typically due to greed, weakness, or moral corruption. This transformation underscores the cautionary aspect of the Wendigo as a symbol of what happens when individuals prioritize selfish desires over communal values. The Wendigo's existence within these stories highlights the dangers of greed and the devastating consequences it can bring to individuals and communities alike. It is a vivid metaphor for the destruction wrought by unrestrained human flaws. The Wendigo is universally regarded as a dangerous and sinister force within Algonquin cultures. Indigenous traditions describe it as not only a threat to individual lives, but also to the moral and spiritual health of entire communities. The creature is said to have a thirst for blood and an ability to corrupt those it encounters, spreading evil and destruction. Its presence serves as a potent warning about the consequences of isolation and the loss of humanity when greed and selfishness are allowed to take hold. Embedded within Wendigo legends is the theme of caution against isolation and the breakdown of community. These tales emphasize the importance of unity and collective well-being, warning against behaviors that disrupt social harmony. By embodying the extreme consequences of selfishness, the Wendigo reinforces the need for balance and mutual support. The Wendigo is a prominent figure in the belief systems of various Algonquin-speaking groups. While cultural nuances in the creature's description exist, there is a shared understanding of the Wendigo as a malevolent and cannibalistic supernatural being. This shared depiction reflects common values and moral principles across these diverse cultures, uniting them through the universal warnings embedded in the folklore. Often associated with harsh conditions, the Wendigo is closely tied to the north, winter, cold, famine, and starvation. These elements highlight the environmental challenges faced by the communities where the legend originated, adding another layer of meaning to the fable. The Wendigo becomes a symbol of desperation and survival in extreme circumstances, intertwining natural and supernatural elements to create a powerful narrative. Basil H. Johnson, an Ojibwe teacher and scholar from Ontario, Canada, vividly described the Wendigo. According to Johnson, the creature's appearance reflects its monstrous nature. It is gaunt and emaciated, with ash-gray skin stretched tightly over its bones and deeply sunken eyes. Despite its skeletal and starvation-like form, the Wendigo possesses an unrelenting appetite. Every time it consumes a victim, it grows larger in size, ensuring its hunger is never satisfied. This haunting combination of insatiable hunger and perpetual thinness illustrates the destructive nature of greed and excess. In various native accounts, Wendigos are often depicted as giants, vastly larger than human beings. These legends emphasize the creature's terrifying scale, which grows in proportion to the people it devours. This trait, unique to certain Algonquin traditions, symbolizes the endless cycle of greed. The more it consumes, the greater its need for sustenance. The Wendigo is a relentless predator, forever seeking new victims and embodying an eternal state of gluttony and starvation. The Wendigo's connection to greed extends beyond its physical form. It is a creature that communicates and, in some depictions, retains human-like cognition and speech. This ability allows it to taunt or threaten its victims, adding an eerie psychological element to its predatory nature. These stories, rooted in Algonquin oral history, predate European colonization and reveal the depth of belief in supernatural beings among indigenous cultures. The first written account of the Wendigo by a European came from Jesuit missionary Jean Lejeune in 1636 in what is now Quebec. In his report, Lejeune described tales of a Wendigo that had killed and eaten several people and was believed to have plans to devour many more. Lejeune's account highlights the shared belief in supernatural spirits between 17th century Europeans and First Nations peoples. Interestingly, his report, written decades before the Salem witch trials, underscores how deeply embedded these beliefs were in both cultures at the time. Missionaries in Canada continued to document Wendigo legends well into the 20th century, demonstrating the enduring presence of these tales within indigenous and colonial narratives. The Wendigo legend remained a focal point for discussions of morality, spirituality, and survival across centuries. In the 19th century, tales of the Wendigo spread to the western frontier, where Plains indigenous peoples and Hudson's Bay Company employees encountered the legend. HBC records recount indigenous spiritual leaders who fell into states of intense religious fervor, leading to accusations of being Wendigos. Community members often reacted with fear and, in extreme cases, took drastic measures. suspected Wendigos were sometimes killed as a precaution, reflecting the seriousness with which these beliefs were held. One notable example involved the Cree spiritual leader Abishabis, who was killed by 3 men after he became greedy and murdered an indigenous family. This act led his community to believe he had transformed into a Wendigo. Such stories highlight the intersection of spiritual beliefs and real-life consequences, demonstrating the profound influence of the Wendigo legend in shaping cultural practices and community dynamics. One of the most haunting tales of the Wendigo, documented by Lottie Chicagua Marsden, an ethnographer of the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, tells of a young boy abducted by this fearsome creature. The Wendigo, driven by its insatiable hunger, planned to fatten the boy up before devouring him. Using a knife, the Wendigo cruelly cut the boy's hand to test if he had gained enough fat, but constant travel kept the boy thin. When they stumbled upon a nearby village, the boy seized his chance to warn the locals about the monster lurking in the woods. The villagers, guided by the boy's courage, confronted the Wendigo, cutting off its legs. However, the creature's horrifying resilience was revealed as it began consuming the marrow from its own severed limbs in order to sustain itself. The villagers returned and ultimately destroyed the Wendigo, ending its terror, but leaving behind a tale of morbid endurance and a truly unyielding hunger. Some Algonquin traditions claim that a person consumed by greed or who resorts to cannibalism transforms into a Wendigo, while others suggest that mere prolonged exposure to a Wendigo's influence can cause the same horrific fate. These stories go beyond supernatural folklore. They serve as moral lessons, emphasizing the importance of balance, community, and resisting the darker impulses of humanity, especially in times of hardship. Rituals and ceremonies played a significant role in addressing the fear of the Wendigo among certain indigenous communities. For the Assiniboine, Cree, and Ojibwe peoples, the Windigu Kanzimhoan, a ceremonial dance performed during times of famine, was a striking display of cultural resilience. Dancers would don masks and move backward around a drum, creating an eerie yet symbolic representation of the Wendigo's taboo. These performances served as both a reminder and a communal reinforcement of survival strategies during dire circumstances. The last recorded ceremony took place at Lake Wendigo on Star Island, within Minnesota's Leech Lake Indian Reservation, representing the enduring presence of this myth in Algonquin culture. The phenomenon of Wendigo psychosis bridges the realm of folklore and historical accounts. Allegedly, during extreme starvation, individuals could succumb to a condition that drove them to crave human flesh. A famous Jesuit account from the 17th century describes individuals overtaken by this ravenous hunger, attacking and consuming others in their community. The only solution, as understood by those witnessing such events, was often execution to stop the spreading of madness. Cree traditions, however, recount efforts to treat the condition, involving rituals using fatty animal meats and a symbolic purging process where afflicted individuals would expel ice, believed to signify the Wendigo's icy grip, leaving their bodies. One of the most infamous true cases tied to Wendigo psychosis is that of Swift Runner, a Cree trapper in Alberta during the winter of 1878. As his family faced starvation, Swift Runner's eldest son, died. Rather than seeking help from a food supply post just 25 miles away, he succumbed to cannibalism, killing and consuming his wife and remaining children. Authorities determined this was not mere survival cannibalism, but evidence of a man consumed by Wendigo psychosis. Swift Runner confessed to his crimes and was executed at Fort Saskatchewan. His story remains one of the most harrowing intersections of myth and documented history. The concept of Wendigo psychosis has sparked heated debates among scholars and researchers. Some view it as a product of cultural misunderstanding by early anthropologists, while others argue it reflects genuine historical events shaped by extreme conditions. Today, the International Statistical Classification of Diseases, or ICD, recognizes Wendigo as a culture-specific syndrome, describing it as a rare obsession with cannibalism marked by delusions and uncontrollable hunger. Modern studies suggest it could be linked to starvation-induced mental disorders, nutrient deficiencies, or social isolation. Ojibwe scholar Brady DeSanti suggests the Wendigo represents a person disconnected from harmony, causing harm to their environment and relationships. Louise Erdrich's novel The Roundhouse exemplifies this concept, depicting a rapist whose actions endanger his community as a Wendigo-like figure who must be stopped. This concept extends to movements as well as ideologies. Professor Chris Schiedler compares the Wendigo to colonialism, emphasizing how expansionism devastated indigenous lands and disrupted natural balance. The 1999 film Ravenous illustrates this, linking the Wendigo to Manifest Destiny, where unmitigated hunger for land and resources led to widespread destruction. In this context, the Wendigo becomes a symbol for forces that exploit and harm others under the guise of progress. The metaphor also applies universally, addressing broader patterns of greed and exploitation. Joe Lockhart, an English professor, describes the Wendigo as a manifestation of social cannibalism, where self-interest overrides communal values. Romantic scholar Emily Zarka ties the Wendigo to winter, hunger, and selfishness, themes central to survival in harsh climates. The creature embodies the consequences of succumbing to selfish instincts, reflecting the struggles of maintaining balance in adversity. In popular culture, the Wendigo has been reshaped, often losing its cultural context. Algernon Blackwood's 1910 novella, The Wendigo, introduced it to Western audiences but altered its meaning, portraying it through colonial stereotypes. Subsequent works like Stephen King's Pet Sematary and August Derleth's Ithequah further disconnected it from indigenous roots, focusing on horror over tradition. In recent years, indigenous creators have reclaimed the Wendigo's narrative, using it to address themes of colonialism, greed, and identity. Works like Linda Hogan's Solar Storms and Nathan Adler's Wrist integrate the legend into critiques of exploitation and loss. In media like Antlers and Fallout 76, the Wendigo appears as a monstrous antagonist, often divorced from its deeper meaning. Despite this evolution, the Wendigo remains a powerful symbol, reminding us of the consequences of our actions, even when we're desperate. The legend of the Wendigo leaves behind a haunting legacy of fear and introspection. While its roots lie in indigenous folklore, the Wendigo has grown to symbolize so much more. Its haunting presence has transcended its mythical origins, becoming a metaphor for all of the darkest aspects of human nature and societal exploitation. The Wendigo serves as a stark reminder of the cost of consuming more than we need and disrupting the harmony of the world around us. The enduring fascination with the Wendigo in popular culture reflects our collective struggle to understand and confront these darker impulses. But even as the creature continues to terrify and intrigue, it forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. What happens when greed consumes us? How far can we push the boundaries before the balance is broken forever? The story of the Wendigo remains a powerful warning, a symbol of the monsters that can emerge not only in the shadows of legend, but from within ourselves. And there you have it, my spookies. 7 legends, 7 warnings, and more than enough reasons to keep one eye on that tree line. Maybe the werewolf of Defiance was simply a man. Maybe the Fouke Monster and the Ohio Grassman were misunderstood animals. Maybe the Chupacabra grew from frightened witnesses, pop culture, and sickly coyotes wandering where people could see them. But the black-eyed children are still knocking, even if it only exists on the internet. Indrid Cold is still smiling, and the Wendigo still warns us that the ugliest monsters may begin with ordinary human hunger. That is the strange power of folklore. The facts can change, the explanations can multiply, and somehow the story still follows us home. If this Halloween primer puts you in the spooky season spirit, make sure you follow and subscribe to Weekly Spooky wherever you listen to podcasts, and maybe leave us a rating and share this episode with someone who believes Halloween is a state of mind, not just a time on the calendar. And every Wednesday, there's a brand new scary story, and every Monday, a brand new true terror to enjoy. Until next time, keep those lights low, but also keep those doors locked, and remember, listen in the dark. It's more fun that way.